Chapter 411, Episode 78, Climax 3. During her adventures on the Isle of Reincarnators, Jang Hayoung utilized the unidentifiable wall several times. She used its first stage function, chat system, to engage constellations in conversation. Demon King of Salvation Nem. Why are you calling me like that? From a certain moment on, she even got to talk to Kim Dakya as if nothing had happened too. For a while there, she also wanted to deny that Demon King of Salvation equals Kim Dakya, and ended up having a mental breakdown, but she had no choice but to come to terms with it now. The Demon King of Salvation, Jang Hayoung liked so much happened to be Kim Dakya, and the dimwit Kim Dakya was none other than the Demon King of Salvation. She barely managed to accept that fact now. Of course, she hadn't 100% accepted it though. I was talking to Demon King of Salvation Nim, so Kim Dakya should keep his mouth shut. It can't be helped then. Don't say anything unnecessary and just gimme the answers I want. What kind of answers are they? Now that he openly asked her that, the sorrow she'd been suppressing until now exploded onto the surface. Why don't you want me to join the Kim Dakya company? She always wanted to ask him that question. She watched her comrades use context of constellation and get to the next scenario, and was left behind along with the teachers at the rear of the scenario. She did want to go with them. She thought that it'd been nice if she could become one of those shining stars too. Is it because I lack the qualifications? Maybe it's because I haven't been with Kim Dakya from the beginning of the scenarios. Jang Hayoung remembered the times they shared during the revolution of the demon world as well as the Demon King selection fights. For the first time in her life, she experienced bliss during those moments, and now they had become an indelible part of her. And that was why she thought that she too had become Kim Dakya's comrade now. But maybe she was simply deluding herself. I'd like you to live a free life. Jang Hayoung's anger suddenly bubbled up after hearing his reply. She wanted to shout back and ask, what kind of bullshit was that after they had come this far? But then, forcibly being transferred to another dimension and living in the demon world, neither of those were your choices, right? She couldn't argue with that. As if her breathing had come to a standstill, all she could do now was to read the incoming messages. Hayounga, please live the life you want. Those words were coming from the Demon King of Salvation. Words of a high and mighty constellation, who was addicted to the fable of saving someone and periodically disregarded his own life. That was why these words were not from Jang Hayoung's friend, Kim Dakya. His voice can't be heard anymore. The unidentifiable wall spoke to her. Even with the wall that allowed her to talk to any being in this world in an instant, she couldn't hear Kim Dakya's voice. He resolutely remained as the Demon King of Salvation, just like what she asked of him. Come on now, what do you want from me when you say stuff like that? That was why she wanted to hear Kim Dakya's voice. Unidentifiable wall is bearing its own name. That was why Jang Hayoung was standing in this place. Unidentifiable wall is evolving into the wall of impossible communication. Second stage functionality of Wall of Impossible Communication is now available. She unlocked the power of her new wall, persuaded all the constellations that could aid Kim Dakya Company, and brought them to this place. All for the sake of the life she wanted to live, and not for anyone else. Tsujajajun. The stupefied faces of the Kim Dakya Company members could be seen looking back at her. Jang Hayoung shouted out, as the sensation of the status filling her head made her consciousness dimmer and dimmer. All of you, wake up and get a move on. I can't stay like this for long. She shouted, her mind submerging deeper and deeper. The presence of a constellation was taking over her entire incarnation body. Wall of Impossible Communication is currently activating Impossible Longing LV-1. The Impossible Longing, an ability of the Wall of Impossible Communication that allowed Jang Hayoung to form a temporary sponsorship contract with a constellation, even though she had no sponsor backing. Constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is looking at his incarnation body. The prisoner of the golden headband, the great sage, heaven's equal Sun Wukong, according to Kim Dakya, one of the greatest constellations in the star stream itself. That great and noble constellation scanned the world with his aloof, arrogant eyes and spoke in a lofty tone of voice. Now that I'm here, it's kind of annoying. Zhang Haiyong became dumbfounded by that and yelled out, "Ah, but you said you'd help, and I even listened to your personal troubles too, so hurry up, please." From her perspective, she couldn't help but be flabbergasted by this situation, but it wasn't as if she couldn't understand why the great sage, heaven's equal, said that. For some reason, his condition after incarnating into her body felt strange. Jujujujut. It was as if several different beings temporarily had become one creature, and his status felt unstable as a result. That annoyance he talked about might have something to do with that condition. However, that was his problem, not hers. If you don't keep your promise, then your hair will. I'm doing it, look, I'm doing it. Sun Wukong replied in a voice full of dissatisfaction and grasped the Ruyi Bang. The status leaking out from his body caused several constellations to display their interest. Great Sage, it'll be a suicide trying to send them back, even if it's you. And who you might be. I'm Chiak Junjeong. As if to resist the Great Sage's status, Chiak Junjeong opened his chest wide. The former wordlessly studied the emotions etched in the latter's eyes before throwing a question out. Hey, you, do you know who this Master Sun is then? Chiak Junjeong needed a moment or two before realizing that this Master Sun was the way the Great Sage, heaven's equal, referred to himself as. I'm well aware that you used to be a famous constellation in the past, even then. Well, yeah, sure. It's been way too long since this great me did something in a scenario, hasn't it? Sun Wukong yawned disinterestedly, and after shrinking the size of the Ruyi Bang, he began digging his ear. Chiak Junjeong was about to blow his top from that arrogance, but then. Constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is unleashing his status. Not just Chiak Junjeong, but the incarnation bodies of other constellations near him were blown away in the air. His eyes opened wide in shock after sensing the powerful presence that could make other constellations shrink away by simply releasing its status. Look, the sparks. One of the suffering constellations cried out in pain. Yong Haiyong's body with the great sage incarnated into it was now completely enveloped with an insane amount of sparks. It was not an odd thing to see probability sparks appear when constellations unleash their statuses. The actual problem here was the fact that this area was currently going through the 89th scenario. In an area that could deal with most types of probability, such a blinding show of sparks taking place meant. Now look. The sides of the 8 trigram, the Bagua, began spreading on all 4 cardinal directions of the great sage, heaven's equal. Jin Chinese letter heaven firmament, T Chinese letter lake marsh, Yi Chinese letter heart of fire, Jin Chinese letter thunder, Sun Chinese letter wind, Gam Chinese letter water, Gan Chinese letter mountain, Gan Chinese letter ground earth. Those letters energetically spun around his Ruyi Jingu Bang, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, and emitted swirling golden light rays. The clones of the indescribable distance detected that vigorous aura and began flooding towards him. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. The probability sparks were the precursor to the approaching storm of aftermaths. As if they were pouncing on a tasty prey, the clones of the indescribable distance opened their maws all at once towards the great sage. There were a total of 6 of them. Never mind fable-grade constellations. Even a myth grade would find it difficult to deal with this many. However, the great sage didn't back down. The moment those vast fogs of darkness enveloped him, his entire figure suddenly lit up in the brightest golden rays of light. And then, his Ruyi Jingu Bang began piercing through the open-mawed fogs along with the vicious whirlwind. Kudujujudu. Not once did the indescribable distance get damaged after getting struck by a lone star relic until now. But then, The spinning wheels created by the Ruyi Jingu Bang increased in number to hundreds in an instant and began pounding on the clones, and quite shockingly, horrifying screeches resounded out from the fogs. Du-rir-rir-rir-ruck. On top of that, one of the clones even tried to dodge the Ruyi Jingu Bang. Every constellation in the battlefield couldn't take their eyes off from the great sage's status, as he dyed the sky in a spectacular shower of light and fought against the indescribable distance. That included Dionysus, Surya, and Chiak Junjeong. It's a technique of chaos. Hades immediately and accurately read the seditious power permeating within the Ruyi Jingu Bang held by the great sage. That power was neither good nor evil. It was a distinct Taoist technique that only the great sage, who had compiled unique fables for himself, could use. The Mei Haowing, Chinese letter, handsome monkey king. The great sage, heaven's equal, Chinese letter. The victorious fighting Buddha, Chinese letter. The prisoner of the golden headband, Sun Wukong, who continued to exist under many different names, was fighting now. And he was engaged in a one versus many battle against the calamities of the void, something that even Chiak Junjeong could only barely defeat by giving his all. As if they didn't want to lose to him, two constellations decided to pitch in right then. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is wringing out all of her true powers. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is roaring out as if he doesn't want to lose. These two statuses were being overlaid on top of the great sages. The black flame from the dragon and Uriel's hellfire were combined into one and caused the Ruyi Jingu Bang to grow to an abnormal size. Fable forgotten under a lengthy period of time has begun its storytelling. And so stars of good, evil, and neutral have gathered in one place. Three kinds of statuses were combined to cause an explosion of a blinding flash. Go-uwu. The Ruyi Jingu Bang, now boasting tremendous girth, slammed into the sky. The heaven and earth rocked violently, and the enormous shockwave distorted time and space itself. By the time the screaming constellations opened their eyes again, a huge hole had opened up in the sky, once covered in the fog of darkness. The great sage spoke, "Now go." Three people didn't miss that opening and made their move. Yu Yonghyuk used air steps to run in the air. Han Suyong rode on the shadow clone of the black flame dragon, while Jiang Huiwan borrowed the wings of the archangel to shoot up vertically. All three of them penetrated past the fog of darkness and breached the boundary of the sky in an instant. The moment they escaped the atmosphere, though, their movements dulled rapidly. The cosmic space created by the clashes between the indescribable distance and the final dragon of the Book of Revelation was filled up with an astonishing amount of fables chaotically swirling around. Qf. Blood trickled out from the corner of Han Suyong's lips at the unbelievable density of fables. Just sensing their presence alone was so painful that her body felt like it'd crumble away. Kim Dokya was somewhere in this space. Not too long afterwards, they located his trace, scattered around like breadcrumbs. Only by doing this will I be able to earn the proper climax. A broken fragment of Kim Dokya was floating aimlessly in the empty space. Jiang Huiwan was the first one to reach out. As if she was catching a very small and fragile bird, she cautiously brought that fragment into her bosom. Was she mistaken in thinking that she saw the distant world Kim Dokya wanted to reach, just beyond the full stop of that sentence? After catching that sentence and then another one, just like crossing a monkey bar by continuously moving one step at a time, they would arrive at the end of this trail. Han Suyong spoke, "I guess you're also a constellation now, Kim Dokya." All constellations were addicted to fables, and in order to reach that single fable they pursued after, they indulged themselves on every other type of fable available. And that was why they didn't have a true substitute of themselves, because they had to create all fables by their own hands in the end. My companions will acquire a fable that should allow them to oppose any nebula out there, even if that fable was meant for other people. God damn it, since when did I ask you for this kind of story? The clones of the indescribable distance discovered the trio and rushed towards their location. Han Suyong shot black flame out from her hand, while Jiang Huiwan's sword of judgment activated hellfire. Yu Yonghyok's breaking the sky swordsmanship sliced through the space and opened up the path for them. Normally, they shouldn't have been able to fight against this calamity. The only reason why they could was because of the star existing at the end of that path. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is still activating Stigma, Sacrificial Will LV9. The Sacrificial Will, a deadly stigma that raised the combat capabilities of one's companions by risking one's life. After being strengthened by that starlight, Yu Yonghyok swung his sword, Jiang Huiwan unleashed more hellfire, and Han Suyong continued to punch over and over again. And eventually, they began sensing the faint presence of Kim Dokya. Like the breathing of a dying man, his weakened fables were telling them of his current location. Tsujujajun. Suddenly, Uriel's and the Black Flame Dragon's status began dwindling rapidly. They had finally reached their limit, in other words. Constellation, demon-like Judge of Fire, is issuing a warning. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, says that he needs to use the bathroom and it'll be harder to use his powers. They finally spotted a pale, faint star on the far side of the thick fog of darkness. Yu Yonghyok and Han Suyong both saw it. It felt so desperately within reach, if only they could extend their hands out. Unfortunately, the path to that star was fraught with much danger. The number of clones rushing in continued to grow, and the pressure of the statuses surrounding them was getting heavier quite quickly. All three no longer had much magical energy left in them, as they had been flying like a one-way rocket, with total disregard for fuel preservation. Kugugugugu. The distance towards the clones was getting shorter and shorter. If all three of them marched forward by breaking through all these clones, then never mind saving Kim Dokya, they wouldn't be able to return at all. However, what if they focused the remaining magical energy into only one person? There's only one way. All three of them stared at each other at the same time. They couldn't rescue Kim Dokya together, which meant that only one among them could reach that star. Episode 78, Climax 3 Fin. Chapter 412, Episode 78, Climax 4. While stuck inside the fog that blocked their view, Yu Yonghyok addressed his companions first. I shall be the one to save him. The dark heavenly demon sword, in his hand, began emitting the pure blue light. All of you are too exhausted, so it's only correct that I continue on. Transfer your remaining magical energy to me. That prompted Jiang Huiwan to unsheathe the sword of judgment and speak. Your own condition is just as messy as ours. I should be the one to go instead. His brows quivered slightly. This would be the first time she came out this forcefully. Both of you better get out of my way. I alone am more than enough. And now even Han Suyong butted in. The gazes of the two, locked in a starring contest, shifted over to her. Their eyes so clearly implied, we get why we want to go, but what's up with you now? Causing her to pout unhappily. Why are you staring at me like that for? What, I shouldn't rescue Kim Dokya? I thought you didn't like Dokya SSI. Of course I don't like him. Now normally, she'd have dumped such annoying responsibility on Yu Yonghyok's shoulders. Unfortunately, she had a reason to step up this time around. Just as Kim Dokya rushed forward aboard Surya's train, a message from him flew in at her. That was why. Hey, you're going to rescue me, right? If only she didn't hear that message. Han Suyong grumbled inwardly and was about to open her lips to speak, only for Jiang Huiwan to snatch the initiative away. I'm sorry, but Dokya SSI personally asked me to save him, so I can't yield to you nor to this guy, not this time. What rubbish are you talking about? Kim Dokya asked me to save him. Stop lying, there's no way he'd ask you to do that. Arg, I'm not lying, it's the truth. You think I'm a habitual liar just because my job was a writer. Their gazes collided in midair. And at that very moment, Han Suyong was overcome with this rather strange feeling. Initially, she thought that Jiang Huiwan was lying in order to save that moron up there. But when she thought about it some more, this woman wasn't the type to lie about stuff like that. She abruptly turned her head to the side, only to find Yu Younghyuk forming a scary scowl. "Hey, by any chance, you?" With indescribable rage filling up his expression, he then began glaring at the distant star. It was at this point that Han Suyong finally realized something. Hang on, could this be? Could that bastard Kim Dok-ya? The star continued to faintly shine in the distance. It was almost as if she could glimpse Kim Dok-ya's smirking face there. Kugagugu. The hole in the sky the great sage had opened up was gradually filling back up. The clones, hesitating in fear, regained themselves, and the fog of darkness was blanketing the world once more. And then, the noise from the apocalypse dragon's shockwave reverberated around like crashing waves. Constellations were jolted wide awake, and they all looked up at the great sage. "My bad, but I can't do that for the second time. I'm already breaking the rules as is." The great sage spun the Ruyi Bang around, and as if he found it all rather annoying, shrunk the pole to store it inside his ear. Nebula Emperor's promise has been invoked against the constellation, prisoner of the golden headband. The great sage that was pressuring the indescribable distance until now began scattering away. As if his body was being torn into several pieces, his clear-as-day status began crumbling away, and right before the end, he issued one final message. "Hey, you lot, if you keep standing around looking dazed, you'll all die soon. Everyone attack. If we're pushed back now, we'll all die for sure." Dionysus and the constellations of Olympus had replenished their energy by then and unleashed their statuses towards the sky. Those from Underworld also stopped preserving their strengths and made their move as well. The Korean Peninsula's constellations concentrated their powers on Yijai, and soon, Turtle Dragon's cannons fired blinding rays of energy. Some began fighting, while some began resisting. It was not the same for everyone, however. Like falling meteors, stars from the sky continued to fall. Constellations from Vedas and Papyrus trying to escape, stars with their modifiers already known, and those who weren't, were caught up in the battle for supremacy between the apocalypse dragon and an outer god, and were crashing to the ground, as if to announce that the age of the stars was coming to an end. Metatron was looking up at the sky. The information Jopil, the commander of the Crimson Cosmos, had sent from the 1863rd turn didn't mention any of this. Currently, both of his hands were occupied with creating the sealing tool to seal away the apocalypse dragon. This tool, created by gathering every fable of Eden as well as those belonging to absolute good. Jopil said as thus, "Scribe, you'll die using this, but the world will remember the good once more." She definitely said that, so how come? The target cannot be sealed. Even though the sealing tool was almost complete, the apocalypse dragon couldn't be sealed away. He didn't know why. He couldn't even figure out how and from where things went wrong either. Was it due to reviving the dragon too early? Or could it be because the indescribable distance had interfered? Was the demon king of salvation the main culprit as he suspected? If they were all wrong, then maybe Jopil. At the end of his vision, he saw Michael, inching closer to his death with half of his incarnation body gone. As long as Eden existed, he'd be able to revive, but with this, the nebula would disappear. Not just it though, but even the entirety of Star Stream would start crumbling away. "Have you already given up? That's quite unlike you." Metatron looked back and his expression hardened instantly. "Did you come here to kill me? You die anyway even if I don't do anything, so why should I even bother?" The ruler of East Hell, Agars, cackled raucously before frowning a bit. Most ancient evil has begun its storytelling. With that message, Metatron realized why Agars had come back here. The archangel spoke. "For a short while there, I was envious of you, envious of the fact that you could so easily abandon the fable of evil and leave just like that. Lying is one of the virtues of evil, Have you forgotten that already? Agar's laughed again, sounding as if he was sick and tired of it. Metatron understood the meaning of that laughter better than anyone. The good and evil. They might be on the opposing sides, but they understood each other better than anyone else in this world. They would not be able to escape from this fable until their dying moments, because this fable was already them by now. Most ancient good has begun its storytelling. Most ancient evil has. Shut up. Just how long will this stinking story continue its beginning crap? Agar scowled after seeing the fables rise up. Most ancient evil is quietly staring at the ruler of East Hell. It's about time you stop, don't you think? Agar shoved his hand into his inner pocket and pulled out a rolled cigarette. Accompanied by the kaik noise, the cigarette was lit on fire and the smoke spread around in the air. The number of stars falling continued to increase, and the clones of the indescribable distance began to devour all the fallen constellations. And from afar, the apocalypse dragon's roar could be heard, too. What a spectacular scenery this is. It's the ideal stage to end this long, dragged-out fight. The leaders of the good and the evil stared at this spectacle. The tragedy taking place here all began with these two. It was around then that they heard a bizarre noise coming from behind. A clone had snuck closer without being detected and had its maw wide open in Metatron's direction. Demon King, the ruler of East Hell, is revealing his status. Kudujadu. The clone rushing in to rip and devour the archangel at any second faltered and stopped moving. Agar's hands reached out and grabbed hold of the clone's mouth, trying to shut close. He was none other than the Demon King, ranked second in the hierarchy. Out of the current crop of Demon Kings, he was the only one capable of contending for supremacy against a myth-grade constellation. Agar spoke while chewing on the cigarette. What are you blankly looking at? Were you planning to become a martyr or something? Although it was only for a brief moment, I did think that maybe that's not such a bad idea. You should finish the things you've started first. I'm telling you to finish the great war of saints and demons, properly as befitting the high-end mighty scribe of heaven. It's impossible. The power of the apocalypse dragon is far greater than I expected. Using the wall's power should be sufficient. Even resorting to that power isn't enough to seal the apocalypse dragon away. I figured as much. However, you'll still be able to save the ones here. After all, the wall exists to protect something, doesn't it? Those words caused Metatron's eyes to tremble. What are you talking about? You always needed to be told twice before you could understand. Agar's was there, still pouring out the vicious status towards the clones. Metatron had fought against that Demon King for a very long time. Even then, he had never seen that kind of an expression from the latter before. At that moment, good and evil looked at each other. The Demon King's eyes looked at the other dying Demon Kings and Archangels. Wouldn't good and evil be able to carry on to the next generation only after these fools are saved from this mess? That is a funny thing for a Demon King to say. I'm only saying it now, but to me, you don't look much like an Archangel yourself. Metatron heard Agar's sullen voice and couldn't help but feel strange. Why did the demon he fought against for such a long time feel so close today? Were their current actions for the sake of good or for evil? Metatron couldn't tell. But he was sure of one thing. Fable of the most ancient good and evil is looking at you. Even if they had become the fable itself, what they chose to do now wasn't because fables told them to do so. I can't do this alone. I know. Wall that divides good and evil is violently shaking. With one wall between them, the representatives of good and evil extended their hands towards each other. Even if we save them here, we still can't stop the apocalypse. I also know that. Agar's placed his hand on top of the sealing tool Metatron had created, but then that's not a problem we should worry about. The Archangel and the Demon King held each other's hands. With that, the sealing tool emitted blinding rays of light and began expanding at a rapid pace. And soon it couldn't be called a tool anymore, but a large ship instead. Kugugagugu. It was an ark that once upon a time protected all beings above ground from the destruction of a world. A mythical vessel that descended to the world in order to protect life itself against the Great Flood. Metatron spoke, "Evacuate the constellations." Understood, scribe. The master of the ark, standing among the constellations, heard Metatron's call and took command of the vessel. The surviving Valkyries began helping the constellations and incarnations in the near vicinity to board the ark one by one. However, Metatron and Agars had to support the ark's fable and couldn't board it themselves. It wasn't only those two who knew that fact, unfortunately. "You've done something quite foolish, O ruler of the East Hell." Asmodeus. Not even giving him time to say something, Asmodeus's claws penetrated deeply into Agar's heart. Even then, the latter's expression remained unflustered as he stared at the face of impending death. Looking displeased by that expression, Asmodeus spoke, "Why don't you give up the wall to me now? You no longer have the qualifications to represent evil." The claws sunk in even deeper and dug out Agar's innards. Pitch-black fables dripped out as the Demon King spoke. "What a persistent bastard you are. Why do you desire the wall this badly anyway? Do you honestly believe that you can become a god by possessing the wall? I know very well that possessing it won't turn me into a god. However, at the bare minimum, I'd become one of the cowards belonging to the final scenario." "I see, so you knew about the final scenario, didn't you?" Agars chuckled bitterly, but then madness suddenly brushed past his eyes. "Sorry, but you can't become the owner of that wall. That's not for you to decide. Besides, when you die, your wall will. You see, I've already handed my wall over to someone else." That sort of It was then Asmodeus's shoulders suddenly flinched. Through the instincts of a demon king, it realized that what Agars had said was true. "Just to who?" "Well now, that's something for you to find out." Asmodeus roared out in anger, and its claws pierced into Agar's neck. As the fragments of fables splattered around like real blood, the latter looked up into the sky. "Isn't this quite beautiful, Metatron? This is our end." The duet of good and evil, dimly continuing on, was now flowing within the night sky of the apocalypse. He saw the cascading meteor shower and grinned brightly. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is currently activating Sacrificial Will LV9. That's really pissing me off. Seriously, I can't even switch that off either. Han Soo-young panted angrily and shouted out loudly. Still stuck inside the ever-expanding fog of darkness, the three of them were fighting against the clones that seemed to increase in number with every passing second. They knew that Kim Dokya was just beyond here. But it was impossible to break past this fog of darkness with the remaining magical power each of them had. So, the best thing they could do under the circumstances was to concentrate their energy into one person right now. Even though they knew that, the trio didn't want to yield. If it was simply about Kim Dokya's sake, then it wouldn't have mattered who went there. While looking at the distant star faintly flickering away, all three of them were thinking the same thing. The odds of the one heading towards that star dying were very high. The fog of darkness was getting heavier and thicker, and the apocalypse dragon shockwave was also getting more violent as well. Kim Dokya was still alive. However, the odds of saving him were low, and even if he was rescued, they'd still die alongside him anyway. And so, this bickering wasn't about choosing who gets to save him, but to find the person who'd die for someone else instead. "Both of you know this already, but I cannot die," said Yu Young-hyuk first. Jiang Hui-won knew what he meant by cannot die and was about to get angry, but then Han Soo-young was a step faster than her. "You need to think about this carefully, Jiang Hui-won. You aren't going to die alone, remember that." Right then, Jiang Hui-won felt the weight of the cross on her back. She had nothing to retort back with. If she died here, then the person on her back would die as well. "In that case, you take over Hyunseong SSI for a..." "Jiang Hui-won, behind you." She reflexively looked behind her after hearing Han Soo-young's yell. However, there was nothing there. The moment she went, "Ah, someone pushed her from behind, and while staggering ungainly, she fell back towards the ground below. By the time she unfurled the Archangel's wings to stop her fall, the figures of both Yu Jung-hyuk and Han Soo-young had grown so far away. "Damn it, what's the me? Stop, both of you." After seeing the two hurriedly grow distant without even bothering to receive her magical energy, she instantly figured out what they were trying to do here. And because she knew now, there was simply no way that she'd suppress her emotions welling up. Kim Dok-ya asked her to save him. However, in order to do that, she couldn't chase after those two. "Uriel." She swallowed back her boiling emotions and extended her hand out. The magical power of an archangel reaching out from her hand pierced past the darkness and formed blinding wings on the backs of the flying duo. It was right then she felt a powerful throb on her back, coming from a certain someone's heart. It palpitated powerfully as if he had something to say. Jiang Huiwon replied, "Me too, Hyunseong SSI." She watched the two arrows of light traverse through the space and get further away, and then, at the faint, weak starlight waiting for them just beyond their reach, she bit down on her lower lip as if she was enduring against something. "But I think it's not our turn yet." Episode 78, Climax 4, Finn. Chapter 413, Episode 78, Climax 5. I remained within my crushed consciousness as fables continued to send whispers in my direction. Fable, Demon King of Salvation, is continuing with its storytelling. Yes, I'm still listening. I haven't fallen asleep. Fable, King of a Kingless World, is sustaining you. I endured on while eating the fables I lived through like a newborn chick being fed. After every sensation from my skin and joints disappeared, it felt as if time had stopped moving. It was like a clock tasked with maintaining my inner balance was broken. Final dragon of the Book of Revelation is letting out a violent roar. Indescribable darkness is glaring at final dragon of the Book of Revelation. The contest of strength was still going on outside, a face-off, one calamity against the other. I could sense the vibration from the shockwave spreading from far away, even inside this fog. Although the status remained strong, the size of the vibration was gradually weakening. As I expected, it seemed that the indescribable distance was in a superior position. The apocalypse dragon was so strong that it surpassed all possible imaginations, but as a calamity, it had woken up from its seal not too long ago. It'd not be quite enough to contend with the indescribable distance that had been drifting around in the star stream for a long, long time. So the balance of power would slowly tilt towards the latter. The problem would be with its clones, though. Exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, third stage is activating. I planned to not use this power on my comrades. Unfortunately, I didn't have any other choice in my current situation. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Accompanied by the pain akin to my head being crushed, dim, indistinct images floated up to my view. The white noise was pretty intense, perhaps due to the worsening damage to the fables, but I could still just about make out the contents somehow. Go and save Kim Dok-ya. The chaotic battlefield appeared before me, and then I saw the Rui Bang rocking the skis of that battlefield as well. He did come. Golden-colored thin fur danced entrancingly in the air. Jang Ha-young, ably enduring the advent of the great sage, was releasing her newfound status towards the sky. The black flame dragon and Uriel were helping her out, and behind them I also saw Kyajios and the breaking the sky sword saint too. Hades and Persephone were protecting my companions from the clones. The mass production type maker was busy loading the collapsed constellations in his X-grade Ferrarghini. And soon, a huge explosion noise resounded out from the center of the battlefield, and a gigantic ship suddenly made its appearance. This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. TL, Genesis 9:12. The fable of the Ark as written by Eden began dyeing the battlefield. It seemed to me that Metatron had come to a decision. Indeed, He must have realized that sealing the apocalypse dragon away would be too difficult at this point. Ajasi, Shin Yu-seung and Yi Jai-hai aboard the Ark were looking up at the sky. The former was supporting Yi Gil-yong, who seemed to have blacked out. It was her duty to stop the boy from going on a rampage, and thankfully, my incarnation seemed to be performing her duty admirably. Constellations and incarnations had evacuated onto the Ark, and then I heard the sound of the island collapsing. Constellation, guardian of the mandala, is looking at you. I thought that a faint outline of the Buddhist rosary had appeared before my eyes, and that was when I heard his true voice. Oh, dear child, it has finally come to this. I could only smile weakly towards him. You knew this would happen already. The 108 rosary beads that appeared before my eyes began emitting wondrous light. Sakyamuni must have predicted this moment as soon as I appeared in his radar. To him, the flow of time wasn't in a straight line but actually one giant circle. He might not know of the detailed information on the future, but through the events of the past, he was able to read the present. The history of this island comes to an end here, and things will get rather busy from now on. I already knew why he'd get busy, thanks to the ways of survival. The rosary beads vibrated all at once as they became whiter and whiter. Soon, this island would be closed, and just like what happened tens of thousands of years ago, this island would seal the apocalypse dragon once more. This island would become a giant rosary that contains the apocalypse dragon. Please, allow my companions on the ark to escape from the island. The rosary before me emitted a faint trace of light. It was a sign of agreement. However, you can't be saved, my child. I nodded my head. I thought as much. Well, I was stuck right in the middle of the apocalypse dragon and the nameless mist, after all. Oh, dear child, I pray for story. His true voice was swept up by the shockwave as well as the wave of the fog of darkness and got erased. My whole body began shuddering like a lone leaf in the wind. The rate of my fragmented fables disintegrating was speeding up. I curled up even more. I was almost there. If I endure this part, then Kim Dakya Company would acquire a brand new great fable. We'd be able to meet the condition of climax Chinese letter that leads us towards the final scenario. Fable King of Kingless World has stopped its storytelling. But then fables began cutting out one by one. Fable Returnee's Disciple has stopped its storytelling. Fable Gourmet Association's Heretic has stopped its storytelling. It became harder to breathe, and my vision grew dimmer. Fable One Who is Loved by an Archangel has stopped its storytelling. I knew that everything would be over if I lose my consciousness here. Fable One Who Hunted the King of Calamity is curling up. Fable One Who Murdered an Outer God is resisting. That was why I desperately held on to my consciousness. I filled my head trying to get away from me with intimately familiar words. Right, let me recall the ways of survival. For some extraordinary reason, though, what appeared in my mind wasn't the contents of the ways of survival, but my life during my middle school years. Memories of me sneakily using the PC without the knowledge of my cousins to read the ways of survival, or when I was doodling on the corners of the school textbook. Memories, when I transcribed the contents of the novel on a notebook, or when I drew up the chart of the power scale of all the characters. Dakya, would you like to become a writer when you grow up? A teacher asked me that after discovering my doodling. I replied that what I wanted to become wasn't a writer, but a reader. The teacher formed a strange expression after hearing that, but eventually smiled back at me. That's not such a bad idea, because a book needs a reader to be complete, you see. That teacher Nim who said that to me passed away 4 days later due to a car accident. That was life. I knew that life was not some story. Fable Demon King of Salvation has stopped its storytelling. However, even still, Fable Companion of Life and Death is continuing on with its storytelling. I would have liked this life to become a story. I want to live. I reached out, but there was no sense of anything. From afar, something was breaking past the battlefield of the apocalypse dragon and the outer god to approach my location. Although it was an incredibly faint general outline of a person, I recognized who it was right away. Starstream is acknowledging your stunning achievement. You have acquired a new great fable. Warm rays of light leaked in from somewhere and enveloped my body. Just as I tried to say something, a voice came to me from somewhere. I want to save him. I definitely want to save him. Han Suyong bit her lips hard enough to draw blood and thought to herself over and over again. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is currently activating Will to Live LV-1. Anyone who heard that message would think the same as her. It wasn't from just anyone, but from that Kim Dokya. It's still not too late. Han Suyong heard Yu Yonghyok's words and wiped the blood trickling down her lip before forming a grin. You know, I've never yielded to anyone in my life before. I know that you've reached your limit. You talking about yourself. I can endure longer than you. Kim Dokya wasn't too far from them now. However, both time and their situation didn't look good at all. The forward momentum Jiang Huiwan added earlier could only take them this far. With their remaining energy, they were unable to fight against the clones nor break past that thick fog of darkness. Kugugagugu. From Han Suyong's bandages, now unwrapped, a mixture of blood and fables flooded out. Her complexion was now incredibly pale. Yu Yonghyok spoke. Are you planning to meet a dog's death here? It's just that, I can't trust you 100%, that's all. Something cold flitted in and out of Yu Yonghyok's eyes just then. She still asked him though, you know that I possess lie detection, right? Of course. Do you really consider Kim Dokya as your comrade? You're asking an unnecessary question. I know that the two of you went through all sorts of crappy scenarios and built up some sort of a bond in the process, but separate from all that, there's something I still can't wrap my head around, you see. Unlike what she said earlier, she didn't activate lie detection during her speech. You originally didn't have any allies and stuff like that, but you've changed so much after entering this regression turn. That's why I can't trust you. You used to forsake your allies all for your great cause, so why are you trying to rescue Kim Dokya now? Yu Yonghyok's gaze met Han Suyong's. It had been such a long time since she last saw him in a pitch-black darkness that, for a moment there, she involuntarily ended up shuddering. It was possible that she had touched something she shouldn't have, because she didn't know much about Yu Yonghyok's regression turns to begin with. He replied to her, once these scenarios come to an end, there is something I must confirm with Kim Dokya. One couldn't read any emotions or thoughts from his face. That was like his version of despair, maybe his rage, or even his hellish loneliness. Or it was possible that none of that belonged to Yu Yonghyok but to Han Suyong herself instead. And that is why, until then, as things stood, there was only one truth she could glean from what he said. Okay, so, you're planning to keep him alive, is that it? She looked to her right hand as she finished speaking. Black flame, burning in darkness, waited for her there. The very last drops of her magical power were drawing on her hand. You better keep your promise. If you can't save him, then. Her burning gaze landed on Yu Yonghyok next. Her small palm touched his back, and then an intense storm of magical energy whipped up. Just drop dead and go to the next turn. The black flame dragon's grace extending out from her arm permeated into Yu Yonghyok for a moment. The magical energy from Jiang Huiwan and Han Suyong combined in that instance to create wings of light and darkness just beyond his black coat. Qaya. Yu Yonghyok grasped the dark heavenly demon sword tightly as he crossed the vast emptiness. He was able to cross the fog of darkness. He couldn't possibly traverse with his own powers alone, with the aid of Jiang Huiwan and Han Suyong. Grace of the constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is permeating into you. Grace from the constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is permeating into you. Even then, his magical power reserve continued to fall. The density of the fog grew heavier, and the starlight grew fainter in turn. Yu Yonghyok gritted his teeth. He needed a sharper, keener, more accurate story. A fable that could pierce through that fog of calamity somehow. Fable, the one who opposes the miracle, is continuing with its storytelling. There it was, right there in the path of emptiness he was gazing at. The history he lived alongside Kim Dokya lay scattered like the Milky Way. Yu Jung-hyuk ran on that path. Fable, one who murdered an outer god, is continuing with its storytelling. He ran on one of the fables, and Fable, Giant's Liberator, is continuing with its storytelling. And as he ran on yet another fable, his incarnation body began moving faster and faster. Soon, gentle rays of golden light enveloped his entire figure. Transcendence level 2, then 3. The moment he surpassed level 4, his body transformed temporarily. Wudujaduk. Bones all over his body screamed, and as if it had been completely overhauled, his appearance changed to become even more agile than before. And eventually into Transcendence level 5. Fable, comrade of life and death, is continuing with its storytelling. He saw a star dying alone in the distance, but to him, that guy no longer looked like a constellation now. Kim Dokya. It was still not too late. The fables they remembered still remained, and the people who remembered him were still alive. The story he so wanted to create, it was still alive and kicking in this world. Fable, Kim Dokya Company, is continuing with its storytelling. You mustn't die in this place. Incarnation body's durability has reached its limit. The Ark is calling out to you. Yu Jung-hyuk suddenly felt a powerful suction force pulling him from behind. That power was preventing him from getting closer to Kim Dokya. Constellation, the guardian of the mandala, is calling out to you. Shut up. Yu Jung-hyuk resisted against all those forces and advanced forward. Kim Dokya was right in front of his nose. 10 steps away, 9, 8. He endured against sparks tearing into his body and continued to march on. 5 steps away, 4. He reached out. He reached out towards the ends of Kim Dokya's clothes, drifting aimlessly in the emptiness. The moment his hand was about to touch the fabric, along with the sensation of his breathing coming to a stop, the surroundings began shaking. It wasn't because he blacked out or had lost his consciousness. When he regained his wits, he realized that someone was grabbing his wrist. A firm, strong hand was holding his wrist, not letting it go. And it happened to be a very familiar hand. Incarnation, Yu Jung-hyuk's sponsor, is greatly shaken up. The entire world was trembling. Noises of the apocalypse dragon and the outer god clashing resounded out, and in the distance, the island and its dimension disintegrating could be seen. But what Yu Jung-hyuk saw just then was far, far more shocking than those sights of the apocalypse itself. Past the chaos that was endlessly ominous and impossible to determine how far it extended, a white coat exactly the same as Kim Dokya's danced in the space. This being now carried the unconscious Kim Dokya under his arm. From the pitch-black darkness, that abyss-like pair of eyes was looking at Yu Jung-hyuk. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, trembling spread up from the ends of his toes, and his grabbed wrist shook like crazy. Because he knew who this being in front of his eyes was. He knew this being so well, and because of that, he couldn't say anything at all. Are you Kim Dokya from the future? Some time ago, Yu Jung-hyuk had asked that question to a certain someone. He asked that because he initially thought that only Kim Dokya knew of the story, extending as far as to the 1863rd regression turn. However, now he thought back to that moment, he realized how stupid that question was. A being who knew all the stories right up until the 1863rd turn. A being who understood a story the best was not the reader who had read it, but the character that actually lived through that very story. Go back, you can't save anyone. Episode 78, Climax 5 Fin. Chapter 414, Episode 78 Climax 6. The great battle between the apocalypse dragon and the indescribable distance. Stars continued to fall as two calamities collided, and this spectacle of the end times was being broadcast to all corners of Starstream. The end of this island is approaching. The guardian of the mandala, too, was watching it through a display panel. As the Isle of Reincarnators began to disintegrate, little bits of noise started to appear on his incarnation body. Yu Sangha, still stuck inside the cistern, spoke towards the guardian. "But you knew this would happen, didn't you? What makes you say that?" Her soul wordlessly emitted a soft light. Currently, her new incarnation body hadn't woken up yet. "Because the you I read about in the library was." "Please, you shouldn't discuss that story yet. There are those who eavesdrop on our conversation." The moment his words came to an end, the entirety of the temple was rocked by a vicious tremor. Ominous, turbid air was pressing down on the surroundings. Beastly growlings could be heard next. Something emerging from the shadows cast by all four corners of the chamber wriggled noticeably. Yu Sangha's soul trembled in worry after sensing that foreboding aura. As the bubbles inside the cistern increased in numbers, Sakyamuni finally stepped forward. "Oh, the hounds of Tindalos, it seems that you've arrived for the wrong prey today." He gently recited a Buddhist prayer, causing the shadows drifting around them to vanish in an instant, as if they were hounds searching for another prey to hunt. Only after those shadows had completely disappeared did Yu Sangha begin speaking again in some difficulty. "What were those?" "Oh, dear child, the door to the final scenario draws near." Sakyamuni's voice had become graver, weightier. "Kugugugu." The Buddhist rosary around his neck emitting heat rose up in the air simultaneously. Already knowing what he was planning to do, Yu Sangha asked him a new question. "Am I not going to reincarnate?" "Why do you think so?" "If this island is finished, then you'd also die, and I won't be able to reincarnate then." "Dear child, we have already made a deal where you'll answer my favor and this body will answer yours, and with that, establish this world's balance." Sakyamuni smiled benevolently and continued on, "And that is why, my child, you will reincarnate as promised. Although you haven't inherited the incarnation body and therefore can't make your mark yet, remember that your role in the final scenario will be critical. That is why." She wanted to ask him what he meant by that, but before she could, her consciousness began dimming. "For the time being, please, get some rest." After her soul fell into a slumber, Sakyamuni extracted her incarnation body and started the procedure to transmit it to a certain place. The temple was rocked once more as the kugugugu noise reverberated throughout its interior. The display panel changed what it was showing as well. It was a scene of two men possessing the exact same countenance staring at each other, one wearing a black coat while the other, a white one. "Finally, you've also made your move, oh the one who stands at the end of the cycle." Sakyamuni stood still and watched this scene for a while, before raising his voice as if he was rueful about something. "In that case, I should start making my preparations as well." "But how?" Yu Yonghyuk hated that question. It was the most commonly asked question while living as a regressor. He even knew all the potential changes in the repertoire, too, from "but how did you know that?" to "but how did you do that, you bastard?" He got so sick and tired of that question, in fact, that there were times where he simply killed those who might throw that question in his way. But now but how? He ended up asking that very question himself, even though he knew his opponent would mock him for it. Tsuchachachachu. A face he knew intimately well looked back from within the storm of probabilities aftermaths. It was a face that couldn't be here, something that shouldn't even be here. Chaos points in the applicable region are rising up rapidly. Problem has occurred in the scenario's balance. Yu Yonghyuk staggered unsteadily, but still, he did his absolute best to figure out the current situation. Like the passage of time, delayed by a broken clock, suddenly rushing forward again, countless hypotheses went on a rampage inside his head. He should have been Kim Dokya. But he isn't Kim Dokya. 1863. But how could something like this? You should know very well that I hate that question. As if his thoughts had been read, the person before his eyes replied to the earlier question. Yu Yonghyuk took another look at the face. The white infinite dimension space coat, glimmering within the bright explosions of sparks. The eye sockets where a pair of empty darkness should have been were now filled by irises of the exact same size as his. It wasn't just the eyes, though the nose, lips, jawline, and even the build, too. A figure so exact that it was like he was looking in a mirror, the sole difference being a large scar running across one of this being's cheeks. Yu Young-hyuk spoke, almost out of disbelief and anger. "You are not me." "Correct, I'm not you." The eyes containing pitch-black darkness now looked down on Kim Dokya, hanging on his waist. Constellation, secretive plotter, is looking at the constellation, demon king of salvation. The message landed like a final shot to confirm the kill, and Yu Young-hyuk shuddered involuntarily. The secretive plotter. This being right before him was really none other than that secretive plotter. The one who sent Kim Dokya to the 1863rd regression turn, the one who told him Kim Dokya's secret and caused so much chaos, the one who sent all those countless indirect messages until now. That secretive plotter was himself who went past the 1863rd turn. Yu Young-hyuk bit his lower lip after hearing a distant explosion. He should think about this at another date. Let go of Kim Dokya. His opponent was the secretive plotter, an outer god born from the chaos itself. Considering his unpredictable pattern up until now, it was eminently possible that appearance was a fake. It's a miracle that you managed to survive this far with such a slow head. Shut up and let go of him, or else. Or else what? Yu Young-hyuk felt his head become dizzy from the status pouring out in front of his nose. He knew that his opponent was powerful. Even then, he didn't expect the gap in strength to be this great. The current him could evenly fight against Indra, an upper-level fable-grade constellation, and not only that, he was able to inflict the god with grievous injuries, too. But compared to the being right before his eyes, what exactly can you do to me? Just what on earth was this? Yu Young-hyuk breathed heavily while calming his legs shaking almost out of control. He noticed that the clones of the indescribable distance surrounding him from all sides began to sneakily retreat ever since the plotter's entrance. Something like this cannot happen. He got angry at the scenario's irrationality, and he grew furious at the star stream that permitted such a nonsensical probability. And when his thoughts reached that far, the inside of his head finally cleared up. If I think about everything the secretive plotter has done so far, then him incarnating to this place right now should be impossible. The secretive plotter was different from someone like the great sage Heaven's equal, Uriel, or even the black flame dragon. No, he was an outer god, and would need an incredible amount of probability just to make his descent to this world. Tsu-cha-cha-chun. For sure, the plotter's entire body was getting swept up in the progressively worsening storm of aftermaths with every passing second. No matter who you were, you could never be free from the probability's aftermaths, which meant that the odds of victory weren't zero. If I was Kim Dokya in this situation. As if he had become Kim Dokya, Yu Young-hyuk began speaking in a calm tone of voice. I don't understand this. You've been staying below the radar until now, so why did you suddenly intervene like this? Because now is the right time. Right time, is it? As soon as that exchange came to an end, a bizarre roar resounded out from the other side of the empty void. It seemed that the battle between the apocalypse dragon and the indescribable distance had reached its zenith. The surrounding space distorted greatly after an incredible explosion swept by. Yu Young-hyuk witnessed the view of the cosmos seemingly being crushed whole, and it really dawned on him that the star stream was indeed marching towards its destruction. For sure, it'd not be strange for whatever crazy things to appear now with that type of probability running amok. And the secretive plotter had been waiting for this moment all along. Kugugugugu. The great holes were opening up far above his head. It'd be his first time seeing that many great holes appear at the same time. That was the hole of calamity that supposedly could destroy a world even if only one opened up. And through those vast, distant holes, innumerable tentacles began peeking themselves out. Oh, oh, the great plotter! The rise of the vanished islands will now commence. Horrifying cries could be heard coming from everywhere. Those true voices caused the bodies of the listeners to be stained by turbid energy. As if he was reacting to those true voices, the secretive plotter, still carrying Kim Dakya, began rising up slowly, more specifically towards one of the great holes. Yu Yonghyok's expression stiffened. Wait, stop. Even though he had no concrete plan, he still stood in the path of the secretive plotter. That's all he did, yet blood trickled down from his nostrils. His vision grew dimmer and the hand holding his sword trembled. Even then, he still spoke. I can't allow you to leave. The secretive plotter looked at Yu Yonghyok in such a condition and spoke. Don't attempt anything foolish. Being able to regress does not guarantee you an intact life in the next turn. Yu Yonghyok accurately figured out what those words implied. One life didn't end with that life. All the previous lives would always remain as a curse during the following turns. He grasped his sword hard enough to break its grip and spoke. I'm not planning to go to the next turn. Is that so? Right afterwards, he felt pain akin to his entire body being crushed. This attack had no sound, no prior warning. Just the movement of the gaze, and Yu Yonghyok's entire body was being squeezed tightly as if he was thrown inside a compactor. He vomited out blood before roaring out, Don't look down on me. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. The pressure from the status suppressing him faltered momentarily when the auras of the Great Fables enveloped his body. Since Kim Dakya was unconscious, Yu Yonghyok was now the holder of the greatest share of the Great Fables the Kim Dakya Company possessed. He didn't miss this opening and swung his dark heavenly demon blade. He poured all of his remaining magical energy into the weapon, and the waves of breaking the sky rode along on its blade. The sword that could shatter the heavens and had already cut down a star, that very sword was now moving in order to cut down none other than himself. It was a surprise attack with no pretense or tricks. However, his sword came to a dead stop after a loud, sharp metallic clang resounded out. Something made out of metal had blocked his attack. Yu Yonghyok's eyes grew larger. It was the heaven-shaking sword. The weapon that broke a long time ago in his third turn life was being held by the secretive plotter. You can't win against me. The two blades collided again, causing the vicious winds of flaming sparks to dance around. Blood poured out from Yu Yonghyok's nose and lips. It felt as if his soul was crashing down to the far side of the cosmos just from the clashing of their blades. Just one collision and his right arm were smashed to bits and his ribs shattered. Yu Yonghyok didn't display any hints of the horrifying pain and continued to raise his status. At the bare minimum, he'd not die, which meant that it was still doable. You're also handicapped just as me. Indeed, the plotter's status was becoming unstable as seconds ticked by. Sparks grew heavier and more vicious, while Fable's maintaining the coat and his incarnation body had begun scattering away. It was as if fables that couldn't be fused had been mixed together. Without a doubt, the bastard is pushing himself. I need to buy more time. On top of this, secretive plotter seemed to be worried about something else for a little while, as well. He didn't show it in his expression, but Yu Yonghyok could sense it nevertheless. Indeed, his status was trying to avoid being noticed by something. Meaning, this bastard wasn't in a situation where he could appear here with complete disregard to everything. Trying to buy time, it's a plan that doesn't suit you. Did you learn it from Kim Dakya? Yu Yonghyok didn't reply. The fact that his opponent had become chatty could only mean that the plotter had become anxious as well. You're only at the third turn, so your end goal shouldn't have anything to do with Kim Dakya, so why are you so hung up on him? That's what I want to ask you. In order to reach my objective, I require Kim Dakya's presence. Then that's my answer too. At that moment, a faint trace of emotions flickered within the plotter's eyes. as if he knew what Yu Young-hyuk was thinking of. You won't succeed, because even Kim Dokya wouldn't know what this regression turn's final scenario looks like. If it was only him, true. How amusing, the third turn who doesn't even know anything. I may only be the third turn, but fables flooded out from Yu Young-hyuk's entire figure. At the bare minimum, I've lived the third turn that you don't know anything about. New fables he earned during this third turn became a part of him and continued to circulate within him. Some texts flowed by in sadness, while some others moved about elegantly and beautifully. Fables that didn't exist in the past lives, and those that he might not get to earn again in the future lives. The secretive plotter quietly watched those fables before opening his lips to speak. No, I do know of this life, oh, the puppet of the most ancient dream. Episode 78, Climax 7 Fin. Chapter 415, Episode 78, Climax 7. The puppet of the most ancient dream. Yu Young-hyuk frowned deeply, although this wouldn't be his first time hearing that term. It's that nonsense about a puppet again. What does it even mean? You still haven't even figured that out yet, and that's why you're only the third turn. Don't speak as if you're so amazing yourself. What do you know about this turn anyway? I know a lot more than you. A burst of anger took over Yu Young-hyuk, and the golden light suddenly dyed his right eye. Exclusive skill, Eye of Sage LV, is activating. The current Yu Young-hyuk was a transcender, repeatedly experiencing the rapid rise of his status and now strong enough to fight against fable-grade constellations. When considering the fact that the discernment level of the Eye of Sage depended on the user's status, he should be able to read the fragmented information on a constellation now. Tsujujajut. Only 2 people managed to perfectly shut out his Eye of Sage until now. One was the prophet Anna Croft, while the other Kim Dokya. However, if his thoughts were correct, then there should be one more being that he couldn't read as well. As befitting the third turn, your judgment is also dull. The right eye of the secretive plotter also glowed in the brilliant golden hue, exactly the same as Yu Young-hyuk. The vision in his right eye was dyed crimson momentarily, and the trickling blood wet Yu Young-hyuk's cheek. Exclusive skill, Eye of Sage, has been perfectly defended against by another Eye of Sage. Constellation, secretive plotter, is looking at the incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk. There's no way that a bastard like you are Yu Young-hyuk. He simply couldn't accept it. No matter which regression turn Yu Young-hyuk it is, he'd never use the scenario of the others as his entertainment. He was certain of this. Even if he existed in other regression turns, regardless of how many lives he'd go through, he was completely certain of never changing his creed. The eyes of the secretive plotter quietly gleamed. You're correct. I'm merely the secretive plotter now. He was merely the secretive plotter, something this being continued to mention up until now. He continued on. The Yu Young-hyuk from the third turn only existed to destroy Starstream. So you knew that. The secretive plotter glanced at the dark heavenly demon sword, crying out viciously and vigorously, and formed a faint smile. No, rather than calling that a smile, it'd be more correct to describe that as a slightly unsettling movement of lips instead. When you destroy Starstream, every constellation within it will fall, which means this fool will die as well. The ends of the plotter's gaze fell on the slumped figure of Kim Dokya. He wavered as if his breathing would come to an end at any second, causing Yu Young-hyuk to dash forward. Claying. The heaven-shaking sword and the dark heavenly demon sword clashed and blue sparks danced everywhere. Blood trickled down from the corner of Yu Young-hyuk's lips. Great fable Torch the Swallowed the Myth is roaring out. He didn't even bother to wipe that off and swung the sword once more. That was an attack born out of the need to get rid of all the unnecessary thoughts from his mind. An act of one last-ditch effort to focus on the target right before eyes by simplifying his thought process. Unfortunately, his opponent knew already what he was trying to do here. The secretive plotter evaded the dark heavenly demon sword and threw a question as if to make fun of him. Why are you trying to rescue Kim Dokya? At the end of the day, isn't he just another constellation you hate so much? The faintest hint of unrest briefly flickered on the attacking blade. The great fable's status emitted by Yu Younghyuk wavered ever so slightly, but the secretive plotter didn't miss that opening and took a stride forward. According to your creed, this fool should have died already. After all, there are no good constellations in this world, are there? The constellations, beings that coveted the scenarios of Starstream, acted like voyeurs on the incarnations and their lives, and gluttonously devoured everything in this world as the subjects of fables. Technically speaking, the demon king of salvation was nothing more than a constellation, just like them. And the current Yu Younghyuk's goal was to destroy all constellations. However, he didn't kill Kim Dakya after the latter had become one. But why not? It was a question he couldn't readily answer. That was why he also had been delaying facing it too. Why did Yu Younghyuk not kill Kim Dakya? All those human connections surrounding Kim Dakya briefly flitted in and out of Yu Younghyuk's mind. Shin Yu-seung and Kim Dakya, Yi Gil-yong and Kim Dakya fighting against other constellations. Kim Dakya, who sacrificed his life for his comrades. And Kim Dakya, dying in such a wretched state like this in the end. Kim Dakya he. Fragments of fables floated around. Kim Dakya told his tale as he lived as the demon king of salvation. Yu Younghyuk knew of those fables too. They were the ones he also lived through as well. But Biyu's voice came from very far away. Yu Younghyuk heard that voice and slowly opened his lips. He, the demon king of salvation, might be a constellation, but there were no good constellations in this world. That belief hadn't changed in Yu Younghyuk's mind as he lived through the 0th turn all the way to the current 3rd turn, a total of 4 lives. The only good star was a fallen one, a good Dakibai was a dead one, and there was no such thing as a good scenario. Even then, Yu Younghyuk was betraying his own creed right now. That Kim Dakya, he isn't a constellation, no, he's simply a human. Even though he knew that made no sense. Kyuruk. Something cried from within its hiding place in the darkness. Kyuruk, Kyuruk, Kyuruk. It almost sounded as if the darkness itself was crying. No, it sounded perhaps more like laughter instead. Right in the middle of that darkness was the secretive plotter. The puppet of the most ancient dream. You don't know anything about Kim Dakya. The heaven-shaking sword, gripped in the plotter's hand, let out a lonesome howl. That was the sword song, possessed only by a being who had endured a life no one could possibly understand. Yu Younghyuk raised his own momentum, not wanting to be pushed back. Do not speak as if you know something that others don't. Rather than a verbal answer, the secretive plotter lightly tapped the unconscious Kim Dakya. That caused fables to tumble out of him like the tears of a child trying and failing to hold himself back. I'm Yu Younghyuk. The young Kim Dakya said those words repeatedly. There he was, leaving the cousin's place to live alone and receiving wages for part-time work that was well below that of the minimum hourly wage. I'm Yu Younghyuk. It was a humble and rather common story, poverty seen pretty much everywhere, a down-on-luck tale commonly found everywhere. A story so common that it was not even worthy of a novelization treatment. And there he was, Kim Dakya, living such a story. I'm Yu Younghyuk. Here was the main character who moved through high school, university, the army, and the company while repeating those words. While reading the web novel, while empathizing with its lead character, while being encouraged by the story, while being moved, enraged, and saddened. I am. That's how Kim Dakya had lived. While reading Yu Younghyuk's fable, he survived a common and unremarkable life. In place of his own misfortune, he substituted it for Yu Younghyuk's, and rather than his own misfortune, he consumed Yu Younghyuk's deaths instead, while writing comments, while meddling in with the story itself. Dear authornim, how about you do this in the next episode? From his birth, Kim Dakya has been a constellation. The plotter's figure was getting more and more unstable. As if he was being influenced by the deep darkness, the ends of his white coat were scattering away into black pieces. And just like that coat, Kim Dakya's life was crumbling away as well. He's a constellation who consumed another being's life to extend his own. Yu Young-hyuk got to peer into such a life of Kim Dakya. He had seen those fables some time ago. He remembered seeing the fragments of those memories back when Yu Sang-ah forcibly sucked him into that place called the library. The third turn, you don't remember anything. I do not care how Kim Dakya of the past lived his life. The golden aura flooded out from Yu Young-hyuk's body, as if the only reason why he kept listening to the plotter's story was just for this moment. He slowly opened his eyes. His entire body now died in the clear-as-day golden light. Abundant status flooded out from his core after he reached the fifth stage of transcendence. What matters now is that we need him to see the end of this world. The breaking the sky energies flow on the dark heavenly demon sword was now going through a transformation. And if he needs to die, then I shall be the one to perform the deed. Yu Young-hyuk's airstep crossed the space. The arc is calling out to the incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk. Constellation, guardian of the mandala, is summoning the incarnation Yu Young-hyuk. There truly wasn't much time left. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. The two great fables now permeated into his blade. The familiar statuses of light and darkness were also combined into his attack, too. They were the magical energy from Han Soo-young and Jiang Hui-won. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, has graced the incarnation Yu Young-hyuk with her blessing. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, has graced the incarnation Yu Young-hyuk with its blessing. Right in this moment, Yu Young-hyuk was not alone. The opposing statuses permeated into the single blade, causing the dark heavenly demon sword's clear light to spew out a destructive fable. He ran on the path his blade was guiding him. Every situation the Kim Dakya company had lived through was ingrained in all corners of that path. The breaking the sky thunder sword. The intense blue arcs of electricity enveloped and danced around Yu Young-hyuk's blade. It was the breaking the sky swordsmanship's profound technique he didn't dare to use even as the apocalypse dragon's electrical shockwave rushed in earlier. On top of this, he added the secret technique he had been training with all of his heart and soul until now. The breaking the sky swordsmanship. Secret technique, inner mystery transmission. Shooting star slash. The technique that even managed to thoroughly defeat Indra, one of the Lokapalas of that powerful Vedas. The blade drew an arrestingly entrancing trajectory of destruction as it moved to cut down yet another star. This one single attack carried everything of the third turn Yu Young-hyuk. You can't be reasoned with at all, it seems. In the following instance, Yu Young-hyuk saw it. The surrounding spacetime distorted, and a certain fable began telling its story next. I shall definitely kill you all. That was an intimately familiar voice to him, a voice directed to the heavens above, filled with hatred. Over and over again. From the 0th turn all the way to the 1863rd, a fable created by the total of 1864 lives. By reviving over and over again. That was the hell of immortality. I will kill every single one of you. When the two swords collided, Yu Young-hyuk felt as if his whole existence was being erased. The difference in their statuses went beyond the realm of overwhelming him and into one of pure respect now. He understood the despair, the regret, the sadness and the hatred engraved into every facet of that fable, and at the same time he couldn't understand them at all. He couldn't even bring himself to fathom the depths of those vast emotions. That was why, just like the countless Yu Young-hyuks within that fable, he began despairing. When facing that fable, he was indeed merely the third turn Yu Young-hyuk, as pointed out earlier by the secretive plotter. Just what did he need to do to understand that incredible vastness of time itself? When he regained his wits, Yu Young-hyuk was flying backwards in space. The The wings Jiang Hui-1 and Han Suyong had granted him were torn now. His dark heavenly demon blade, now broken in two, spun and fell alongside him, just like his life. The seemingly slow-moving heaven-shaking sword was now closing in on his heart next. Chaos points are rising rapidly. Someone is growing wary of the existence of the secretive plotter. Hound chasing after the abyss has made its appearance. It was then that an unexpected event occurred. Strange life forms, just as ominous and foreboding as outer gods, suddenly popped out from the corners of the distorted space. They cried out like perfectly trained hounds and ignored the laws of space-time to pounce on the secretive plotter as if they were stuck in fast-forward. Tsu-cha-cha-chun. Annoying hounds. The heaven-shaking sword, falling towards Yu Yonghyok's chest, changed its direction and began smacking away the hounds. However, it still failed to block every single one of them. Only then did Yu Yonghyok realize that those hounds were what the secretive plotter had been trying to avoid until now. After getting bitten by one of the hounds, the plotter hurriedly flew towards the distant Great Hole, along with Kim Dakya still clutched in his arm. Yu Yonghyok extended his hand without much energy, but by then, the star had grown far too distant to reach. He no longer possessed any strength to go to that star now. The broken pair of wings crumbled like sand, and just like that, he crashed towards the darkness of the ground below. We need to disembark now. No, you wait. My master and Ajasi haven't come back yet. The cold sweat drops oozed out from the troubled master of the Ark as he watched Yijai make an unreasonable demand. The conclusion of the 89th scenario, final dragon of the Book of Revelation, is impending. There were only 30 seconds remaining until the closure of the island. They had to leave this place in the next 20 seconds at the latest. In the end, the master of the Ark made his decision and was about to start rowing the oar. But then, there they come. Something was falling from the sky above. It's Yu Yonghyok. An unconscious man in a tattered coat, Yu Yonghyok, was falling towards the ground. Master, what happened up there? Yijai leapt up, caught him, and returned to the Ark. Both Han Suyong and Jiang Hui-1 quickly came in closer to shake him around. Hey Yu Yonghyok, why are you alone? Where's Kim Dakya? What happened to Dakya SSI? Yu Yonghyok didn't reply. Realizing what that signified, both women looked up towards the sky, but then the Ark began moving. And no, wait, hang on for a sec, there's one more person still coming. I said stop, Godamit. Unfortunately, the words of the companions were swept away by the shockwave, as well as the fog of darkness belonging to the indescribable distance, crashing in viciously. Location for the scenario is shutting down. Warp is starting. Constellations screamed, and under the cascading meteor shower, the closing curtains descended on a world. A smaller apocalypse to prevent an even bigger one. Inside this spectacle, the Isle of Reincarnators was disappearing into the forever. No, stop, I said stop. The Ark was disappearing into the clear, bright streak of light, and some people aboard it were desperately reaching out with their hands. Some plopped down, some cried out, and some watched all of this happen. Kim Dakya, you have acquired the scenario's calculated reward payment. Someone from Starstream has completed his climax/Chinese letter. Great fable, Season of Light and Darkness, is born. And then, only a story nobody wanted to hear remained in that place. Episode 78, Climax 7 Fin. Chapter 416, Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 1. 2 days passed by since the end of the Great War of Saints and Demons. The nightmare-filled Isle of Reincarnators could no longer be seen. Constellations were gradually leaving the Ark for their rightful spots in the night sky. This stop is for Olympus. Constellations from Olympus stood up from their seats after the ship made the announcement. Dionysus, standing as their representative, shifted his gaze over to Jiang Hui-1 and addressed her. My apologies for leaving first, even though this is a difficult period for you. No, we'll be fine, thank you. Do not be overly worried, however. He's no ordinary constellation after all. Without a doubt, he's still alive. He lightly tapped her shoulder and soon disappeared beyond the dark dimension while leading other constellations. She stood there and silently waited until they were gone from her view before climbing down from the bow of the ark. When she got to the bottom of the stairs, she found a person waiting for her, Han Soo-young. Dionysus. He left. Both Chiak Jun-jeong and the underworld too. I think they'll be leaving pretty soon. And Uriel? Han Soo-young continued to ask, and Jiang Hui-won continued to answer. Most of what they chatted about were trivial information, stuff like Hades and Persephone, Uriel, Chiak Jun-jeong's abode, etc. Some who would be leaving, some who would be staying, some who would accompany them. A part of the info was about the matters everyone knew already. The thing was, though, it was not really important whether someone knew this or that. Ha-young-yi is still completely worn out, and teacher Nims are helping her out by performing Chugung Gwahyol. TL note at the end. And Jai-hai. At the back fixing her battleship. What about Yi-hyun-seong? One would ask, while the other would answer. They walked on the corridors of the ark and repeated this process. It was as if they wouldn't be able to hold back even for a second by not doing it. What about the kids? Well, Before Jiang Hui-won could finish her sentence, they heard the kids' voices coming out from one of the cabins lining up the corridor. I knew it. I gotta sign the contract with the darkness right now so I can get my revenge for Hyung. Revenge? What revenge? Ajasi is definitely alive, I can feel it. Well, I also knew that. If it's Dakya Hyung, he's definitely. You need to wake up already. We need to come up with a sound plan right now. Jiang Hui-won's and Han Soo-young's steps came to a halt at the same time as if they had promised to do so. They listened to the kids' conversation. Those two were bawling uncontrollably only the day before. However, the two of them, as they appeared through the cabin's window, were. I guess they will be fine after all, said Jiang Hui-won. Han Soo-young waited for a beat before asking her, what about you then? The latter didn't reply. Instead, her gaze slowly faltered. The former stopped looking at her conversation partner and shifted her own gaze lower too. Jiang Hui-won opened her lips eventually. He asked me to save him. He pleaded with me to rescue him. She tightly clenched her fist. They didn't need to stare at each other to feel this emotion resonating between them. It sounded as if dry rain was falling somewhere. Han Soo-young listened to that noise impassively before speaking up. We'll have a lot of things to do when we get back. Right, I know. Jiang Hui-won rubbed her face with her sleeves and smiled weakly. For the time being, we should go back to Seoul, right? We should. There will definitely be some bastards aiming for Seoul now that Dakya SSI has disappeared. And we'll have to sort out the law and order back home, too. Who'll tell you Soo-jeong, though? That well. The two women stopped talking and stared at the empty space for a while. The first person to break the silence was Han Soo-young. I wish we still had Yu Sang-ah with us in times like these. I miss Sang-ah SSI. They had lost far too much getting here. Their gazes shifted outside the window to see the passing view of the dark dimension. They saw the stars on the faraway galaxies sparkle softly. The universe wouldn't be destroyed just because a single star suddenly vanished. There was a countless number of them, and their light would continue to exist afterward too. But for those living on a certain planet, that particular star would be everything they knew about the light itself. Han Soo-young did her best not to look at Jiang Hui-won's reflection on the window. The latter muttered in the meantime, just what on earth has happened to Dakya SSI? The former didn't reply and began walking again. Not too long afterward, they arrived at the last cabin in the corridor. They quietly opened the door and entered to find Yu Young-hyuk wrapped from head to toe in bandages lying on a bed. Han Soo-young spoke as she rummaged through her inner pockets to find a lemon candy. We should be able to find out once this idiot wakes up. This happened back when I was still in the middle of reading The Ways of Survival. I was scrolling down the chapter, fully satisfied knowing that I had completed the day's work, only to discover something written on the author's words corner at the bottom. Dakyanim, what do you think? I've already forgotten what that question related to. It might have been about the plot development, or he might be implying something about the novel itself. Now, how did I answer him back then? Well, such a simple twist is a bit. You thought so too. I was startled anew by this portion of my memories. Did something like this really happen? I remembered so well about the ways of survival itself, so why have I completely forgotten about this part of the memories? I couldn't understand it at all. Right now that I looked back, the author did chat with me every once in a while, didn't he? As for me, I wrote comments to engage the author. Most of the time it was to cheer him on, or to ask questions regarding the next regression turn, but sometimes I did try to tackle him over the novel too. I think it was around when Yu Young-hyuk had just gone past the 600th turn. I just couldn't understand something about the novel no matter how hard I thought about it, so I end up arguing with the author through the comment section. Authornim, was that a typo? How can Young-hyuk smile brightly? TLS 123 replied back. Anyone would change like that after regressing over 600 times. I thought that the answer kind of made sense after hearing it, and that must have been the first time that I began thinking earnestly about the number of times Yu Young-hyuk had regressed. Regressing over 600 times, was it? What did life even mean to a being that had to repeat such a life over and over again? Kim Dakya wa Kiup. Dull pain pulsed inside my head and my consciousness returned gradually. My body felt lethargic, and terrible pain buzzed from all corners of my incarnation flesh. I barely managed to tear my eyes open, and the faint rays of light pierced into my eyes. And then a familiar voice came flying in my ear. Looks like he's finally woken up. Yup, he just couldn't be nice about it, now could he? I smirked a little and shifted my head in the direction of the voice. However, something seemed off. So this fool is that Kim Dakya. By the time I fully opened my eyes, I discovered myself surrounded by countless Yu Young-hyuks. I needed another 10 minutes or so to regain my consciousness again. I had blacked out once more, and after waking up, kept my eyes closed and tried really hard to figure out what the heck was going on here. At least, I needed to get a bead on the current situation. Firstly, the great war of saints and demons was over. I was certain of that. Messages waiting in the log proved that fact at least. You have acquired the great fable, Season of Light and Darkness. Your third great fable has completed its climax/Chinese letter. Third condition for the hidden scenario, the one single fable, has been met. Final fable is waiting for you. The entirety of Starstream is set abuzz over your achievement. Majority of Starstream constellations are now paying attention to your nebula. Regarding your fable, the absolute majority of the constellations are. I had finally completed the one single fable's climax/Chinese letter. The energy belonging to an unimaginably enormous fable was now roiling powerfully inside me. The great fable, the Season of Light and Darkness. It was my first time hearing about such a great fable, but that made sense. The collision of the nameless mist and the apocalypse dragon didn't occur in the original story, after all. With that as the starting point, the entire world line should begin experiencing sudden and violent change. The march towards the apocalypse had sped up, so it was only obvious that the rate of the entire scenario's progress would speed up as well. Secondly, someone did rescue me. My problem began from this point on. Just who did save me? It's no use pretending to be unconscious. As an aside, the very last face I saw was that of Yu Young-hyuk's coming to save me, so maybe it was obvious that I'd end up seeing his face now. But the problem was not just his dumb looks, but it seems that even his head is dumb. Just like what I've heard. Why were there so many Yu Young-hyuks in this place? Not only that. In complete stupefaction, I gazed at the 5-6K coma Yu Young-hyuks currently standing around on top of the bed. Without a doubt, they were Yu Young-hyuks, but all of them were big-headed chibis with short limbs and about the same size as Kyejios. TL, K-coma, an informal Korean word denoting a child or in this case a chiba-like figure. Am I still dreaming? Right, this had to be a dream. Right, the stress he put me under every single day had piled up and must have caused this horrifying delusion. That had to be it. I hurriedly slapped my cheeks, prompting the K-coma Yu Younghyuks to speak one after the other. He must think this is a dream, like a fool. He may need some time to figure out his current situation first. What an annoying bastard. Do we need to wait for him then? I cleanly ignored them and scanned the room I was in. It was a huge circular-shaped room. Everything, including the table, the chairs, the other smaller knickknacks, and even the bed I was sitting on, was circular-shaped. Where the hell was I? I thought hard and long, but nothing came up. A room with such peculiar furnishing would be more than memorable enough, but I couldn't remember ever reading about it in the Ways of Survival. Wondering if I stumbled into an area for a new scenario accidentally, I summoned the scenario window, only to be smacked in the head with the following message. Currently, Starstream is in the middle of scenario system maintenance, meaning there was pretty much nothing I could learn in my current situation. Looks like he's almost done with analyzing his situation. I shall ask again, are you the one called Kim Dakya? The K-coma Yu Younghyuk with a hot-tempered facial expression asked me. Now that I took a closer look, there were different numbered cards stuck to the chest of each K-coma Yu Younghyuk, and the one who asked me just now had 999 written on his. I decided to answer them for the time being. Correct, I'm Kim Dakya. The K-coma Yu Younghyuks looked at each other and nodded their heads simultaneously. These little guys, even though they were much smaller than the original, they acted exactly the same as Yu Younghyuk. Looks like the correct one has been brought over then. Even the voice was the same too. I didn't know what was going on here, but by this time I had to accept it. I was not stuck in a dream, and thanks to some unknown crazy whims of the probability, I somehow ended up in a strange, fantastical kingdom where K-coma Yu Younghyuks lived. Who are you guys? I decided to ask them first. I knew that they wouldn't answer me straightforward if they were anything like the original Yu Younghyuk, but still. One of the K-comas began muttering out, "How pathetic, can't you tell by looking?" Yup, thought as much. If I was to be stuck in a world like this, then I'd have preferred to be surrounded by the kind, gentle K-coma version of Yu Sanga instead. I was wondering how should I retort back in order to hear a proper answer from these guys, but then the Yu Younghyuk with 888 written on his card spoke some rather unexpected words. With your dull head, you never arrive at the correct answer no matter how long you agonize over it. So, I shall tell you. We are a part of the Great Plotter. Great Plotter, could it be? A chilly sensation flitted in and out of my head just then. The Yu Younghyuk with 777 on his chest must have interpreted my silence on his own way and spoke in a mocking tone. Your pathetic intelligence shouldn't be enough to understand it now. Right, these guys, they were definitely Yu Younghyuk. There was absolutely no doubt about that now. If you're fully awake, then get up. Someone is waiting for you. Who's waiting for me? You'll see when you get there. I got up unsteadily and followed after that K-coma. The round door opened up and a huge corridor appeared before me. The one to take the lead was the K-coma Yu Younghyuk number 999. I followed him. The rest of the K-comas trotted after us too. I asked one of them, "What is this place?" That prompted one of the Yu Younghyuks following me to speak up. "Yun Gui I Soup." What was that? It means the Engai's forest. You're supposed to be a prophet, yet you can't even tell that. What the hell? Why did you say that in English then? TL note at the end. The K-coma Yu Younghyuk number 666 glared at me as if he was disappointed and turned his head away, obviously unhappy. It was around then I began thinking that maybe those numbers represented the regression turns each Yu Younghyuk had lived through. What did Yu Younghyuk do around the 666th turn? was that when he partnered up with the abyssal black flame dragon. I spotted the view of a silver forest outside the windows lining up the corridor. Ngai's forest, was it? Sounded familiar, as if I had heard about it somewhere. However, I wasn't sure whether this place ever appeared within the ways of survival. It was then when our group encountered another, one walking towards from the other side of the corridor. So, is he the one the plotter had brought along? No, could I even describe their movements as walking? Overcome with the sensation of all the hair on my body standing up, I subconsciously gripped the hilt of my unbreakable faith tighter. Because outer gods were walking towards us from the opposite side. Existences that emitted auras incomparably more unstable and ominous than any constellations. One of them sported a horse's head, while others were monstrous creatures covered in disgusting-looking tentacles. Those tentacles extending up to the air seemed to tilt their heads for a bit, before shuffling closer to my direction. No matter who looked at that, they wouldn't be able to describe their intentions as friendly at all. Unexpectedly, the one to step in their paths was none other than the K-Coma Yu Younghyuk number 999. He's our guest, don't even think about harassing him. But it should not be a problem just to have a little chat. I shan't permit it. The K-Coma Yu Younghyuk number 999 declared as thus, and unsheathed the miniature version of Heaven's shaking sword from his back. Following that, the K-Comas numbers 888, 777, and even the number 666, they all unsheathed their weapons mounted on their backs and hips. These guys, could they even really fight? I mean, they all kind of looked like action figures, so. Maybe the other party thought the same as me, because they began emitting stubbornly persistent hostile aura towards us. How dare you, just because you're the dependents of the great plotter. As the standoff quickly became even more volatile and the tentacles and the K-Comas were about to start fighting, a loud thud resounded out from somewhere. Outer gods busy wiggling their tentacles about suddenly all knelt down. The only one among them still standing was the horse head that showed animosity towards me. Another thud resounded out. Finally, even the horse head had to slam its head on the floor. Those tremors couldn't have been as simple shockwaves of an earthquake. No, someone was intimidating these outer gods with incredible status right now. Woo woo woo. Outer gods groaned in pain and moved out of the way. At the end of the corridor, there was an entrance leading to a huge hall. It was an open type, with the massive circular ceiling decorated by the tumbling, roiling branches of trees. I walked into this hall accompanied by the K-Coma Yu Younghyuks. Thin rays of sunlight permeating in between the branches illuminated an ancient, worn-out throne right in the middle of that great hall. No one needed to tell me, but I knew it right away. The being sitting on that throne, he was the king of this forest. Not only that, I knew who he was already too. The scar on his face, revealed under the faint rays of the sun, and the exact same white coat as mine. The being I thought I'd not get to meet again was sitting right on that throne. It's been a while, Kim Dakya. Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 1 Fin. Chapter 417, The Secretive Plotter 2. I took my time studying the person before my eyes. My heart rate sped up greatly, and my breathing became ragged as well. Something touched a box of memories that shouldn't be touched, and words began leaking out from this box buried deep within the recess of the darkness. Where is the Arendite? Are you the one hiding it? That was the first time I encountered that dude. While firmly holding me by my collars, he asked me that question. If you're not planning to answer me, then I shall use force to find out. The golden eye of Sage gleaming brightly just like back then was right there, waiting. A migraine assaulted me, and my view distorted like that of an abstract painting. The voice from the memories continued on in the meantime. That world you've shown me, does it really exist? Applicable individual isn't a character. There existed certain memories that should never be forgotten even if one wanted to, and perhaps the memories of that regression turn were precisely that for me. I failed to save Yu Younghyuk of that turn. He left for the next turn, still wearing the white coat. I had never forgotten the sight of his back, surrounded by bright light and leaving me and Han Soo-yong of the 1863rd turn behind in complete freedom. You are. For the longest time, I lost myself and stared at the Yu Jung-hyuk sitting on the throne. The scar on his sunken cheeks, those dark, deeply withdrawn eyes, everything belonged to the 1863rd turn Yu Jung-hyuk that I remembered. However, my shock didn't end there. Constellation, secretive plotter, is looking at you. The secretive plotter. Only then did I finally discover the ominous, evil aura rising up from that Yu Jung-hyuk's entire figure. This evil was different from that of the Demon Kings. No, this was chaos that the star stream didn't recognize as either good or evil. I was about to say something, but then something emitted bright light from within my inner pocket. Exclusive attribute, Scenario Interpreter, is activating. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, is reacting to your attribute. As if it was waiting for this moment, the fable began telling its story. Two Yu Jung-hyuks were in a certain place. Go back, you can't save anyone. The secretive plotter. As if they were stuck in fast forward, scenes sped along in my mind. They were fragmented information, sure, but still, they were also plenty enough for me to figure out the current situation. So that's what happened. I began to gradually understand what was going on here. Next up was the sight of Yu Jung-hyuk crashing, Yi Jai-hai catching him, and finally, the Ark leaving the Isle. It seemed that the Kim Dokya Company had safely escaped from the Isle of Reincarnators. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, has stopped its storytelling. I sighed softly under the breath and shifted my gaze over to the existence atop the throne. The secretive plotter looked down at me from his spot at the same time. The fourth wall is strongly activating. My heart calmed down and my reasoning returned to me bit by bit. I sucked in a couple of quick but deep breaths and opened my lips to speak. If you were planning to make me panic using that appearance, then well, congratulations, you succeeded splendidly. Have you not used polite speech towards me earlier? I'm merely treating you the way that fits with your choice to appear as Yu Jung-hyuk. I appeared completely unflustered by his aura, and as if he was amused by it, the plotter's lips twitched slightly. Not caring whether he did or not, I simply continued on. The secretive plotter. I suggest we do the 3 divine questions and answers. And why would I agree to do that? There's no way that you're the 1863rd turn Yu Jung-hyuk. It's impossible, actually. What makes you think that? You wish to know. As an aside, there are 3 reasons, you see. A faint flash of light flickered in the secretive plotter's eyes. So, are you interested or not? Although tempting, it's not a fair trade, is it? The secretive plotter stared at me with a pair of quiet, contemplative eyes. He seemed to be thinking about something, and also, maybe a bit angry as well. Just how long passed by like this? His left eyebrow quivered rather greatly. I suddenly recalled a certain passage from The Ways of Survival just then. Whenever Yu Jung-hyuk makes a serious decision, his left eyebrow would quiver. The secretive plotter spoke. I'll put forth a condition. What kind? I'm sure you're curious as to why I brought you here. I nodded my head. Of course I was curious. However, you can't ask me about that, because I can't tell you. Some answers can only be resolved by you actively searching for the right question first. What kind of a Buddha-like utterance is that? I shall agree to the 3 divine questions and answers now. You can ask me about 3 things, but you can't ask me a question related to why you've been brought to here. Is that your condition? One other thing. When you're done with the 3 questions, you must figure out the reason you had to be brought here. Now that was something I didn't expect at all, and I momentarily panicked. What if I failed to do that? The secretive plotter didn't reply. Instead, he raised his lengthy finger and rested it on the armrest of his throne. Just that simple action alone sent a chill down my spine. Can I defeat him in my current condition? I began inspecting all the fables I possessed, from the legendary grade 1 all the way to the great fables. It'll be better for you to stop doing something foolish. It was none other than the K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 999, standing next to me, who said that. I smirked and looked down at him. Are you worried about me? It's annoying to remove a corpse, that's all. What are you exactly anyway? Are you using your allotted questions then? Good. No, hang on a minute. Before I could finish my sentence, though, messages began floating up. 3 divine questions and answers has begun. Both sides can exchange 3 questions and 3 answers. Both sides can refuse to answer 1 question each. Questions and answers will not end until both sides have asked a question and answered it properly. You are now using your right to ask the first question. I caught the K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 666, grinning slyly on the side. Sons of bitches. Still, now that things had ended up like this, I figured it'd not be so bad to hear their story now. They are my dependents. I hope you aren't planning to end your answer like that. I'd prefer for you to be a bit more in-depth now that you're planning to tell me things anyway. I'd be eternally grateful if you so graciously explain yourself properly on what your definition of dependence are, whether it's something like Avatar, or if it's something similar to the dependence demon kings have. I spoke as cautiously as possible to make sure that what I said didn't sound like the second question. That prompted the K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 777 to sigh in admiration and speak up. He sure talks a lot, doesn't he? I wasn't talking to you. They are beings that have received my memories. You have acquired the first answer. So, it's similar to the Avatar skill then. It's my turn. Tell me the first reason why I can't be the 1863rd turn Yu Young-hyuk. If you were really Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn, then there's no way you'd be wearing that white coat. Why not? The stigma regression only sends back one's soul. It doesn't send back the items in your possession. The coat I gave to the 1863rd turn's Yu Young-hyuk was destroyed as he regressed. So, if you're really from the 1863rd turn, you shouldn't be wearing that coat. Interesting. However, this is merely an item I personally purchased. Yu Young-hyuk doesn't wear the color white often. Ask your second question. You are now using your right to ask the second question. I didn't hesitate and spoke up. My second question, are you the 1863rd turn Yu Young-hyuk? My question caused the secretive plotter's complexion to waver ever so slightly. Are you trying to mess with me? No, I'm being dead serious. I am Yu Young-hyuk, who had experienced the 1863rd turn. In the past tense, is it? I'm merely the secretive plotter now, that's why. You have acquired the second answer. Unless one placed a special condition, one had to speak only the truth during the 3 divine questions and answers. If one didn't, then one would be swept up in the storm of probabilities aftermaths immediately. However, I didn't spot any signs of the storm around the secretive plotter. Now, speak the second reason why I can't be the 1863rd turns Yu Young-hyuk. There are just too many inconsistencies for you to be the Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn. What kind of inconsistencies? If you're really him from the 1863rd, then why did you send me over there to kill yourself? Logically speaking, it doesn't make sense, does it? That's because that action would create me. It's a simple time paradox. I was Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn, and only by you killing me there would I be reborn as the secretive plotter. Sounds like you've been rehearsing that answer for a while there. It sounds so natural, too. Even if I assume that you're being truthful, quite unfortunately for you, you seemed less than satisfied after I succeeded in my mission. Also, you looked quite surprised, too. Ask your next question. No, you go ahead first. I'll ask mine last. The secretive plotter stared at me for a little while before eventually opening his lips. Fine. What is the final reason why I can't be Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn. I have a special method to find that out. I possess a skill that allows me to read the inner thoughts of the other party, you see. So, but then, the 1863rd turn's Yu Young-hyuk became an existence that I can't read anymore. I clearly remembered the moment that Yu Young-hyuk left for the next turn. The moment when he broke free from being a character, and even my exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, could no longer read him. Does that mean you can read my private thoughts? No, I can't read yours also. Then what? However, the reason why I can't is different. Activation of the skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been cancelled. Your degree of understanding on the applicable individual is simply far too inadequate. Your degree of understanding simply can't catch up to the status of the applicable individual. I quietly looked up at the messages floating up in the air. The secretive plotter frowned deeply. I can't accept that as your reason. You are. I'll ask my last question, said I, not giving him any chance to speak. Back in the planet where I used to live, there happened to be a novel called 3 Ways to Survive a Ruined World. Almost instantly, the surrounding atmosphere changed. The expression on the secretive plotter's face sunk to its coldest yet. His eyes had become cold-blooded, as if he'd murder me at any given second. I desperately resisted that aura and continued on. This was one question that I wanted to ask all along. Secretive plotter, are you someone who knows the epilogue of that novel? Yu Young-hyuk had a dream. It was a really old and worn-out dream. For some reason, he was wearing a white coat inside it. He held the heaven-shaking sword that fit him like a glove. While gripping that weighty weapon, he was fighting against someone. When he took a closer look, he realized that the person in front of his eyes possessed the exact same countenance as he did. It was another Yu Young-hyuk, but wearing a black coat instead. He wasn't sure of why he had to experience such a dream. The 1863rd turn. Maybe it was because he ended up running into that guy. That was probably why he had to dream about something like this. Yu Young-hyuk gritted his teeth. The gap he felt between his and the secretive plotter's overwhelming status the moment they clashed remained so vividly etched in his mind even now. Utterly disregarding his sentiments, though, the memories continued to slowly seep into him. He had become the Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn and was swinging his sword around. I'll die. I'll regress. Every time the swords collided, Yu Young-hyuk felt the despair and loneliness of the 1863rd turn. Strangely enough, everything felt so natural to him. As if those emotions were his all along, since from a long time ago. Stab. Finally, the 2 swords stabbed deeply into the 2 stomachs. This story will come to an end here. Even then, everything will start from the beginning once more. Yu Young-hyuk wearing the black coat scattered away first, and soon, even himself began scattering as well. The memories dissipated, and the emotions he barely managed to comprehend began abandoning him. He summoned up the last of his remaining energy and looked behind. His vision blurred, and he couldn't see clearly what was there. However, it felt as if he had seen a bright and pure star. I had grown curious of that world's black. For the next regression, Yu Young-hyuk's eyes shot open along with the loud noise of Yep. He panted heavily and spotted the white ceiling of the hospital room, and then also heard someone's voice, too. Finally, our slumbering prince of the forest has woken up. He turned his head to the side to find Han Soo-young and Jiang Hui-won. The former bit and broke the lollipop before spitting out the stick and began growling at him. Time to tell us just what happened back there, dear good regressor, sir. Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 2 Finn. Chapter 418, The Secretive Plotter 3. Han Soo-young's demanding tone prompted Yu Young-hyuk to start with his story. However, his tale sounded incoherent, and he repeated himself over and over again. 10 minutes passed by like that. She eventually stopped listening quietly and spoke up. Okay, that's enough. I think you're not in the right frame of mind here, so let me organize everything you said for you. You just indicate to me if I got it right. Now normally, such a one-sided declaration would have elicited a strong reaction from him, but Yu Yonghyuk simply chose to nod his head, his expression dark, gloomy. Han Soo-young immediately began her job. You went to rescue Kim Dak-ya, but then someone else showed up first to snatch him up, and that someone was whom we all know, the secretive plotter. Yu Yonghyuk nodded again. However, that guy had the exact same face as you and was wearing a white coat. Correct. What are the odds of that being a fake? I mean, that guy's so hard to believe, right? It's possible that the secretive plotter disguised himself to look like you. No, it couldn't have been a fake. How come? He used the fable that the me from the 1863rd regression turn possessed. You mean that immortal whatever chuny-sounding fable? Han Soo-young thought as much, and nodded her head. Her irises expanded ever so slightly as her fable kicked into gear once more. Fable, predictive plagiarism, has begun its storytelling. The only one left out of the loop, Jiang Hui-won tried to say something, her voice sounding confused. What are you two talking about? Are you saying that the secretive plotter looks like Yonghyuk SSI? Han Soo-young glanced at her for a bit before replying with a long sigh. Simply put, there are two Yu Yonghyuks in this world line. Is that even possible? No reason why it can't be, if Yu Yonghyuk from another world line has crossed over to this one. You can do that. Well, Kim Dak-ya went to another world line through a similar method, didn't he? Now, the problem here is just how powerful a being is he when he's capable of doing something like this. Even the highest-ranked constellations from either Eden or Papyrus couldn't cross to another world line with their own powers. However, this secretive plotter was powerful enough to deal with the requisite probability all by himself. Jiang Hui-won's jaw dropped slightly as she muttered, just from which world line could he? There is only one with the highest possibility, actually. The one Kim Dak-ya went to, the 1863rd world line. The 1863rd regression turn. The final world line for Yu Yonghyuk as it was written in the 3 ways to survive a ruined world. Yu Yonghyuk looked at Han Soo-young and asked a question. How much do you know about that world line? A bit. At the end of that world, the me of the 1863rd turn divided into 2 and fought against each other. One of them died, and the other regressed. I know, I saw it in my dreams several times already. Your dream. As if she was sick and tired of the whole thing, she vigorously waved her hands about. We don't have the time to get into the details. In any case, you think the current secretive plotter is you from the 1863rd regression turn. Am I right? Yu Yonghyuk spoke up, his face full of dissatisfaction. It's not a definite thing. There are a few points that don't add up. Such as, the strength of the secretive plotter far exceeded that of me from the 1863rd turn that I read about. And then, Yu Yonghyuk chewed on his lips for a while. I also got the feeling that he was hiding something from me, such as his white coat. The white coat. My stigma, regression, doesn't send the items I possess alongside me when I regress, meaning there's no reason for him to be wearing that coat. Maybe he likes the white color. I detest the color white. Isn't it possible that your taste might change? This matter can't be answered as easily as that. Are you saying that it's an issue with your gut feeling? Yu Yonghyuk nodded his head. It was as if that bastard was mocking me. Mocking you? It was as if he deliberately wore that coat. He massaged his forehead, and the words left behind by the secretive plotter flitted in and out of his mind. The third turn, you don't remember anything. A weighty silence descended in the room. Han Soo-young was deeply immersed in her thoughts as she rubbed her chin, while Jiang Hui-won could only smack her lips, not fully getting what was going on. A while later, the former opened her lips to speak. All right, fine. Let's sum it all up. Logically speaking, the secretive plotter must be the Yu Jung-hyuk from the 1863rd turn, but your gut feeling says otherwise. That's it, right? In that case, let's begin with this assumption first. The Yu Jung-hyuk from the 1863rd turn is not the secretive plotter, meaning the plotter is lying to you. Yu Jung-hyuk's eyes trembled. It's just my feeling, yet you are willing to believe it. It's not just anyone's gut but yours. Isn't it supposed to be, you know yourself the best? Han Soo-young grinned refreshingly. He then addressed her with a suspicion-filled expression. Speak your hypothesis, Han Soo-young. What do you mean? You already suspect who the secretive plotter might be. Am I wrong? This time it was Han Soo-young's eyes to narrow to a slit. Since when did you become this quick on the uptake? It's impossible for you to believe what I say, that's why. For a short moment their glares collided in midair, and through that exchange, both of them came to realize just what kind of images were floating up in the heads of the other. Not too long ago, they had discussed the possible identity of the secretive plotter. Back then, Yu Jung-hyuk opined that the plotter was Kim Dak-ya from the future, while Han Soo-young she. Arg, just how long are you two going to talk among yourselves? Just who is this secretive plotter? Jiang Huiwan's pressing words prompted Han Soo-young to cautiously open her lips. What I'm about to say is just a hypothesis, nothing more. I don't care whether it's a hypothesis or not, I just want to know. I have been curious about something for a really long time, you know. Curious about what? What if the novel Ways of Survival didn't become reality? What are you talking about out of the blue? So what if somewhere out there in the universe there is a world of ways of survival, as pure as intended and not been affected by either me or Kim Dak-ya? Han Soo-young continued on with her explanation. In that world where neither Han Soo-young Corporation nor Kim Dak-ya Company exist, let's say there is this dumbass, Yu Jung-hyuk, who repeatedly goes through countless regressions while losing his comrades over and over again. Wait, you bastard! What if that Yu Jung-hyuk managed to reach the conclusion Chinese letter through innumerable losses? What if a version of Yu Jung-hyuk that saw the end of Star Stream through his own powers alone existed somewhere in the universe? Han Soo-young waited for a beat before shifting her gaze over to Yu Jung-hyuk. In his violently rocking eyes, her reflection could be seen. And what would a guy like that be thinking about when he's looking at the current third turn? The secretive plotter. The constellation that didn't appear within the original Ways of Survival. Even then, a being that possessed more power than any other constellations I've met so far. Secretive plotter, are you someone who knows the epilogue of that novel? That was the reason why I decided to ask this question. I was sure of guessing the plotter's true identity correctly as long as he provided me with the right answer. Eventually, the secretive plotter opened his lips. I am refusing to answer that question. What? No, hang on. Constellation, secretive plotter, has used the right to refuse on the third question. God damn it, I forgot about that. Both sides could exercise the right to refuse once during this 3 divine questions and answers. The plotter was looking down at me with a pair of eyes that couldn't be read. For a brief moment there, I witnessed the probability sparks envelop his coat. I feel tired. Enough, now go back. Hang on, the Q&A isn't over. Before I could finish, I was overcome with the sensation of space folding around me, and soon found myself standing outside the hall. The sense of dejection rushed in as I stared at the firmly shut door to the hall. 3 divine questions and answers has been temporarily suspended. You still have one more right to ask a question remaining. Normally, the 3 divine questions and answers wasn't a ceremony that one side could willfully delay like this. However, this secretive plotter managed to do exactly that. I couldn't even estimate how powerful a status he must have possessed in order to make something this unbelievable happen. I pounded on the hall's door and shouted out, "Open the door. This is not what we agreed upon. I need to get back to my comrades." In that instant, A powerful status rocked the door, and my incarnation body was flung away. I staggered back up to my feet and got ready to unleash my own status. Unexpectedly, it was the K-Coma Yu Younghyuk number 999 who dissuaded me from doing that. It'll be better if you don't. I sensed the ominous flow of air beyond the doorway and urgently withdrew my status. Indeed, this K-Coma Yu Younghyuk was right. My incarnation body was still gravely injured, and the other party was a being so strong that the current me couldn't even guess his actual power level. You'll have another chance, Kim Dokya. And when will that be? K-Coma Yu Younghyuk began looking at me with eyes reserved for when looking at a dumb fool before one of them spoke up. Follow us. We're going back to your lodging. I felt hopelessly lost by the prospect of returning to that circular room again, but as I was now, I didn't have much of a choice. I could sense the multiple presences of outer gods looking at this way from all corners of the corridor. Thankfully, I was a guest of the secretive plotter. It was all too clear to see what would happen if I tried to escape and become an uninvited guest in the process. Go-oo. Yup, not making a rash decision would be for the best after all. Also, it wasn't as if I walked away with nothing from the current situation, anyway. The fourth wall is faintly vibrating. There are quite a few faces I haven't seen in a while. Looks like a group of Shantaks. I was startled by the sudden voice coming from my inside. It was coming through the fourth wall's messaging system. Judging from the way it spoke, the devourer of dreams. It is indeed I. Now that I thought about it, I had an outer god residing inside me, didn't I? I completely forgot about it somehow. I began thinking that maybe I could ask for his help in my current predicament. Looks like they are being friendly towards you. Being friendly, you mean that? I stared at the outer gods, raising their tentacles up threateningly in my direction. The moment our gazes met, the end of one of the tentacles suddenly bloomed open to resemble a horrifying-looking flower. They are curious about you. Now that is a rather uncommon event among outer gods. I looked at that flower bud swaying this way, and that as if to win me over, and shook my head in helplessness. It'll be hard to become friends with those guys. Hard why? You must know why by now after reading this and that in the library. I walked past the outer gods emitting gloomy, foreboding aura and began recalling the final episode of the Ways of Survival. The final battle of the Starstream is related to those outer gods. In the original story, Yu Younghyuk lost everything still remaining with him by that point. Every single incarnation that helped him up until then all died in that war. Died because of those monsters of chaos that brought the destruction of the world. But then the devourer of dreams said something rather unexpected to me. Do you know why outer gods have become the calamities? That is. I seriously pondered it for a moment, only to fall into this strange, inexplicable chain of thoughts. Indeed, it sure was a strange thing. Even a novel as brimful of detailed explanations as The Ways of Survival failed to mention the origins of the outer gods. It was at that moment a certain theory popped up in my head. The true identity of the secretive plotter and the origins of the outer gods. Could there be some kind of a connection between the two? Before I could throw out a question regarding that theory, someone engaged me for a chat first. I heard that you like reading novels. It was the K-Coma Yu Younghyuk number 999. I nodded my head. Sure I do, what about it? If you want, I can tell you a short story. A story? It was then the K-Coma Yu Younghyuk's number 666, 777, and 888 all looked at 999 with baffled expressions. It seemed that this wasn't a part of the plan. Not even waiting for my reply, the K-Coma Yu Younghyuk number 999 began telling his story. There was a wolf that continued to fight a lonely battle for a very long time. He had a goal he was chasing after, and there was a question he wanted to ask. For the answer to that question, he continued to fight. Is it an allegory? The wolf kept fighting. hundreds of years, thousands, and maybe even for tens of thousands of years. I wanted to say that a wolf couldn't possibly live for that long, but regardless, the story continued on. The wolf eventually reached the end of the battle and became the Wolf King, and he managed to find the answer in his own way. He had to pay the price of losing his entire pack in the process, but in the end, he came to accept that answer. Because it was the best possible answer that the world could provide him with. Now with that answer, the king began roaming the world. This was a rather vaguely abstract story, yet. But then one day, the king learned that there was yet another pack existing somewhere. Even then, this story sounded undoubtedly familiar, too. In that pack, he found the exact same wolf as himself. That wolf possessed the exact same goal as him, and was surviving for the same purpose as him, as well. I listened to the tale as if I had been entranced by it. But then something was different. The wolf of this pack hadn't lost anything. Right now, this guy was telling me the story that the secretive plotter didn't want to tell me earlier. Finding his prey, protecting his pack, the distant goals he longed for, this wolf was achieving all those with the minimal amount of pain, without losing anything in the process. The king watched this spectacle and suddenly thought to himself. Slowly, so very slowly, a chill crept down on my back. If this story is brought to its conclusion as it was, then what was the purpose of the life I've lived so far? Yu Yonghyuk was now asking straight at me. Kim Dakya, have you ever thought about a life like that before? Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 3 Fin. Chapter 419, The Secretive Plotter 4. All sorts of complicated thoughts rushed past my head. It felt as if someone was ringing a gong right next to my ear. I covered my mouth from the sudden rush of the sick feeling from my stomach. The K-coma Yu Yonghyuks kept looking up at me as I began wobbling about unsteadily. Kim Dakya knew who these beings were. The final revision of the ways of survival spat out bright texts from inside my pocket. He knew, but at the same time, he didn't want to know. Kim Dakya. The K-coma Yu Yonghyuks realized that something was wrong with me and called out. I needed to stop thinking. The fourth wall is shaking. Stop thinking. The fourth wall is shaking intensely. However, I couldn't. Pages were flipping over inside my head. As if there was a storm raging about in there, all those pages swirled up and flew at the same time to completely blanket my consciousness. Hey you! And eventually, my vision was dyed in pitch-black darkness. Looks like he's learned of it now. The K-coma Yu Yonghyuk number 41 spoke as if it was in passing. Next to him was the secretive plotter, sitting on the ancient, worn-down throne. By any chance, did you deliberately give out that hint? That wasn't my intention. I don't see any reward for you after you even prepared props to put up a show like this. The K-coma Yu Yonghyuk number 41 spoke as he stared at the plotter's white coat. It was the same coat as the one Yu Yonghyuk from the 1863rd turn wore. The plotter felt that stare. While taking the coat off, he spoke up. I wasn't putting on a show. That guy from the 1863rd should have been a part of me originally, just like all of you. However, he opened the door and left without warning, didn't he? While leaving behind that coat, too. The K-coma Yu Yonghyuk number 41 took over the white coat. As if the two had been talking about something forbidden up until now, a short silence descended between them. The secretive plotter wordlessly extended his hand towards the empty air. A circular table suddenly materialized next to the old throne. There was a wine glass filled with red wine on top of it. He lightly picked the glass up. It seems that the scenario is progressing far quicker than expected. Its ripening degree is nothing to write home about. It's all because of that fool, Kim Dakya. Has the Dakibai King made his move yet? The K-coma Yu Yonghyuk number 41 flipped through the message log in the empty air. No, not yet. However, great Dakibus are now moving behind the scenes. The Wennies have contacted us as well. It'll soon start then. I guess so. Yu Jung-hyuk stopped talking for a little while. Ominous howls could be heard coming through the cracked walls of this palace built to resemble a circle. Those were the cries of the outer world's hound searching for them. The secretive plotter opened his lips. 41st. You are the most similar Yu Jung-hyuk when compared to me. What an honor that is. You'll soon die. Have we not come this far for that exact purpose? They stopped talking again. Pale white light suddenly glowed in the empty air, and soon, Starstream's broadcast screen appeared there. The secretive plotter flipped through the screens as if he was bored and spoke up. There isn't much left till the end of this long story, then. When I opened my eyes, I found myself inside the library. Kim Dak-ya so annoying. I heard the wall's faint voice and shook my head to regain my wits. Sorry about that. The lights from the lanterns brightened up the dim darkness. It seemed that I was sucked into the fourth wall's interior once more. The wall had protected my mind from breaking down, in other words. I massaged my pulsing head and took quick, short breaths. I needed a bit more time before my mind cleared up sufficiently enough. How long did it pass by like that? Eventually, only one line remained etched inside my once chaotic mind. The secretive plotter is Yu Jung-hyuk from the original Ways of Survival. He was not the Yu Jung-hyuk I met in the 1863rd turn, nor the guy I experienced the third turn with. No, he was someone I had never met before. Indeed, he was Yu Jung-hyuk who witnessed the conclusion of the star stream, before the third turn even had the chance to begin. Hang on, Authornim, what will happen to Jung-hyuk now, when it's like this? I recalled the last comment I made on the final chapter of the Ways of Survival. That novel came to an end and left everything up to the epilogue, the answer to the question I was dying to know. I slowly got up from the spot and took a look at the bookshelves around me. Yu Jung-hyuk, Records from the Fourth Turn, 8th volume. I stood there dazed after looking at the book's spine, revealed under the gentle light. The stories that I grew up reading were here. I slowly reached out towards that book's spine. My fingertip touching the end of the spine trembled faintly. This was the story that I read over and over again. Each of those phrases was my life, my blood, and my flesh. But now, why did such a story feel so alien to me now? I forced myself to grab that book, hoping to get rid of this feeling. This was a story that I could enjoy reading regardless of what time it was and which page it was anyway. This story wouldn't betray me. If I read it, I should feel better, just like how it always did. Rather coincidentally, the page I flipped to was the scene of Anna Croft and Yu Jung-hyuk in a face-off. The novel's Yu Jung-hyuk spoke his line. "This is because of you." My hands trembled as I flipped the page. I couldn't work up the courage to read what was on the next page. Maybe I didn't have the qualification to do so too. I was happy reading this story. My entire life amounted to nothing but me reading about someone else's sorrow and pain. In that case, how was I any different from those damn constellations up in the sky? What will you do? I looked behind to find Nirvana there. There are two Yu Jung-hyuks in this world. The librarians had gathered around me. 3 pairs of eyes were now looking at me, pitying me. Nirvana, Simulation, and then the Devourer of Dreams. I met each of their gazes and asked, "What do you guys think? Do you wish to acquire the opinion of this one?" Nirvana stepped forward to reply. He sounded confident as if he knew the right answer already. No need to fall into a dilemma. Every creature started as one in the beginning, after all. You're going on about that one again. Everything was one to begin with, so what does it matter if there are 2 or more Yu Jung-hyuks? Becoming one with all the Yu Jung-hyuks is the utmost important providence of the cosmos. Yup, it was my fault to ask this idiot in the first place. I shifted my gaze and discovered that the master of the cinema dungeon, Simulation, looking back at me. It seems that you're suffering under the weight of the guilty conscience. Guilty conscience. Was it all right to bluntly label what I feel into that sort of emotion? My hand holding the book trembled, causing the pages themselves to tremble as well. Why do you feel guilt? Are you tormented by the misfortune he had suffered? I'm not too sure. Regardless of what, you can't save him. He has already lived a life like that, and you simply read about his story. That is the summary of your reality. His voice, tinged with a certain logical sense, contained the wisdom of an ancient being who had read many stories for the longest time. The last one to speak was the devourer of dreams. It pushed up its glasses with its tentacles and spoke as if to mock me. Oh, dear Constellation, do you honestly believe that the great plotter is asking for your sympathy? The moment I heard those words, my emotions cooled down as if they were bathed in icy cold water. It was correct. This emotion I've been feeling was the same thing as me insulting every story I had read. Besides, now wasn't the time to swim in these trivial emotional mires. Nirvana glibly continued on. Looks like you've finally regained some of your lost senses. Right now, I need to worry about much more realistic problems first. I need to return to my comrades, but I don't have any methods of getting out of here. The devourer of dreams nodded its head. I'm sure that's the case. Within the Engai's forest, he's basically the god after all. Do you know something by any chance? I do know, but there's not much meaning even if I explain. Because you get only further away from their origins the more you try to explain anything related to the outer gods, just like what the Recorders of Fear have done. Recorders of Fear. I seem to have heard a similar story once before. Meanwhile, the Devourer of Dreams continued on. The entrance and the exit lay in the same place. In most cases, a door with "Pull Me" written on it would open when you push at it. You must figure out why you're here. When you do, you will naturally discover the exit yourself. I heard what the secretive plotter said earlier after hearing those words. When you're done with the 3 questions, you must figure out the reason you had to be brought here. The reason why I had to come here. When I thought about it, maybe the 3 divine questions and answers being suspended was a fortunate thing for myself. I might have been able to guess the identity of the secretive plotter, but I hadn't been able to figure out the reason why he brought me to this place. That guy, why did he bring me here? He's a being who witnessed the end of one world. The devourer of dreams spoke as if it already knew what my question was. What can compel a being who already knows of Black Square to throw himself back into the great cycle once more? In that moment, I recalled a certain moment in my life. It was a piece of my memory from a very long time ago. I was a young boy, sitting opposite my mother and reading a book resting on my lap. Dakyaya, please read it again. What would be the reason for an existence that knew the story inside out to read it again? Yoyugo Otinao Kim Dakya. In the following moments, my view broke up and I was swept up in a whirlpool. The sight of the library scattered away like smoke. Everything spun around until my consciousness returned to where it belonged. Still suffering from the slight case of migraine and dizziness, I slowly opened my eyes along with a soft groan. Current incarnation body recovery rate, 34%. Drips of fable fell one at a time from the IV pack filled with fables, currently attached to my arm. And there was information on my incarnation body floating up on the display in the air. Currently, the injection of healing medicine cannot be administered due to the extensive damage to your foundational fable. Natural recovery is recommended. You currently possess high resistance against elixirs. You can consume a new type of elixir to boost the rate of recovery. I struggled to push myself up. Every corner of my body still ached like crazy, but still, movements in my joints felt a lot smoother than before. Bu. As expected, Bu didn't reply. However, I was greeted by another message instead. You're currently connected to a temporary channel. A temporary channel meaning this place was not an official scenario location of the star stream. Total numbers of connections. Number of constellations currently connected to the temporary channel, 2. It was saying 2, which was as clear as you could get, as much as the number of clicks the ways of survival got. I began thinking, if I wanted to escape from this place, there was little choice but to have another face-to-face with the secretive plotter. but I wasn't sure if he'd meet me again that easily. In that case, there was only one other method left. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is calling the constellation secretive plotter. If the bastard didn't want to meet me, then Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at the constellation secretive plotter. Then, until he looked at me again. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is throwing a temper tantrum in the constellation secretive plotter's direction. Yup, I just needed to annoy him. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is. Constellation, secretive plotter is glaring at you. As expected, a response came. Just before I could send back another message, though, the door to my room flung open with some force. You insane fool, why are you making a ruckus like this? Oh, so you came. The K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 666 was glaring at me. If you want something, you can simply call for me. So, stop with the barrage of noisy indirect messages. Since these K-Coma Yu Young-hyuks were all dependents of the secretive plotter, they must have been able to hear my indirect messages, too. In any case, that 666 seemed to be tasked with caring for my well-being. What surprised me there, though, was that he held what looked to be some kind of a smartphone-like device. Unfitting for a mini chibai, the phone itself was the regular big size. Why are you looking at that thing? Were you playing a mobile game? I got up from the bed and quickly snatched the phone away from the unguarded hands of this idiot. Yu Young-hyuk's original profession was the pro gamer, so it wouldn't be all that strange for him to play a game of some kind. Lei, give it back to me this instant. 666 leaped up and smacked me in the waist while roaring out in anger. I simply stared at the display in pure stupefaction, though. Hey, this isn't a game now, is it? You're currently connected to 2 channels. You're currently in the area outside the scenario's control. You are now connected to the official channel via proxy channel. The smartphone screen was displaying a rather familiar background. Dakya Ajasi is all right. He's definitely alive, I can tell. Just below the live icon, indirect messages from constellations I was familiar with were cascading down as if it was some kind of a chat room. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, is nodding his head energetically. Constellation, Maritime War God, is consoling the members of Kim Dakya Company. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is. What shocked me even more could be found at the bottom of the chatroom display. Constellation name, Secretive Plotter. You're currently a VIP subscriber. Due to one of the VIP membership perks, you are exempt from the cost of indirect messaging. Please select the expression you wish to convey. Currently, you have selected Stay Strong. Please enter the amount of coins to be sponsored. You can sponsor from 50 coins upwards in the applicable channel. No amount has been entered. See. Please enter the message you wish to convey through indirect messaging. Forget about full slide command choosing leader. You have exceeded the word length input limit. I stopped reading there and looked down at the K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 666 in sheer dumbfoundedness. Hey, I'm asking you just in case. By any chance, the one who sent all those indirect messages was. It's merely my turn today. Give up the device immediately or I'll kill you, Kim Dakya. The deeply blushing K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 666 held the heaven-shaking sword tightly and panted angrily. Only then did I finally figure out something that I failed to understand until now. So I had these K-Coma idiots to thank for all those countless indirect messages the secretive plotter allegedly sent my way. When he comes back this time, let's just throw him inside a coffin and bury him somewhere. It'll be better to let him out only after the scenarios are over. Yijai said something hair-raisingly scary just then. I watched the kids sitting together on the screen, and my heart began aching as if I had been sneak attacked just now. It hadn't been that long since we parted ways, yet I missed them already. Whatever the cost, I had to return to them. Because the Apocalypse Dragon scenario was already over, So if I didn't hurry back to where they were then. Tsujujujut. That was when the probability sparks went on a wild dance. One by one, Dakibus began appearing in the skis of Seoul. I spotted Bihyung among them as well. New main scenario has. God damn it, so soon. Bihyung inside the screen began speaking up. Dakya Company, it's now time to leave for the final scenario. Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 4, Fin. Chapter 420, The Secretive Plotter 5. Final scenario. Jiang Huiwan frowned deeply, while staring at the blinking message in the air. The final scenario was already starting. The Apocalypse Dragon scenario was supposed to be 89th. So, did this mean that the 90th scenario was the last? It wasn't just her who was confused by this, though. Every constellation still riding on the ark exchanged glances and began murmuring among themselves. What does that even mean? Wait, did the 99th scenario start already? Some of them even began lodging complaints to Dakibai Bihyung, too. What kind of an underhanded scheme is this? It's not the time for the final scenario to start. Are you planning to take Kim Dakya Company away separately? Bihyung studied the reactions of these constellations before shaking his head. The invitations to the final scenario are being issued since from a while ago. More correctly, ever since all of you decided to wake the Apocalypse Dragon, that is. His declaration caused the constellations to become noisy among themselves. A few of them seemed to have realized something, and while looking around the vicinity in worried eyes, began shouting out loudly. In that case, send us to the final scenario too. That's right, we also possess the qualifications. Bihyung spoke as if to pacify them. I'm sorry, but I'm not in charge of you, everyone. But if you possess the requisite qualifications, then the assigned Dakibus will arrive soon to guide you, so please rest easy. However, his tone of voice was definitely not a friendly one. That is, as long as you are qualified, of course. Complexions of the constellations paled visibly, and soon afterwards, the Ark made another announcement. Next stop is the 8612th planetary system. The 8612th planetary system, where the planet Earth was, the home to Kim Dakya Company. Bihyung shifted his gaze over the members of Kim Dakya Company, as if he could no longer delay the matter. Well now, everyone from Kim Dakya Company, please gather around. That prompted Han Soo-young to step forward. No, hang on a minute. We finished the last scenario only a few days ago, you know. Please let us head over to Earth first. We haven't completed our preparation for the next scenario yet. Jiang Huiwan also pitched in. One by one, the comrades gathered around Shin Yuseung, Yi Gilyong, and Yi Jaihai too. They all carried confused, unsettled expressions. Bihyung sighed softly under his breath. As I thought, it's really inconvenient without Kim Dakya around, isn't it? If only he was here, he'd have understood it already. Just what's the reason for hurrying us up like this, if you can't give us a proper explana? Bihyung's lips quietly moved. There aren't that many entry tickets remaining. You gotta go there as soon as possible to secure yours. Those words were conveyed through the Dakibai communication. The members of the Kim Dakya Company looked at each other at the same time. If this Dakibai was sending a covert message like this, it could only mean that he didn't want other constellations to hear him. However, what was with this entry ticket thing? Did they need such a thing for the next scenario? Yu Yonghyuk suddenly made his entrance from behind the hesitating group. Let's get going. But hang on. Yu Yonghyuk remained adamant even when Jiang Huiwan tried to stop him. The final scenario won't start just because we enter its location. It's the right decision to heed his recommendation. But what about Hyunseong SSI? Entrust him to my master. Jiang Huiwan hurriedly looked at Han Soo-young. The latter seemed to be thinking about something for a bit and then grabbed the former's shoulder. For the time being, let's go there. There must be a reason if he's being so insistent like this. Maybe Kim Dakya might have gone ahead of us and is waiting there. It's worth checking it out. The words Kim Dak-ya brought about resolute determination on the members' expressions. I agree. Me too, me too. Shin Yuseung, Yi Gil-yong, and even Yi Jai-hai all quickly made up their minds. Jiang Hui-won seemed to be worried about Yi Hyun-seong until the end, but eventually nodded her head after listening to Yu Yong-hyuk's words. We might be able to find a way to revive the Emperor of Steel Swords sooner by going to the final S scenario's location. In that case, I don't have a reason to hesitate anymore. Well, let's get going then. Along with Bihyung's voice, Kim Dak-ya Company, surroundings were dyed in bright light in an instant. Scenario transmission is starting. Perhaps due to the higher-ranking Dakibai's authority being invoked, the time it took to move through the portal was short and comfortable. In the blink of an eye, the group found themselves transported to the middle of pitch-black outer space. More specifically, on top of a semi-transparent disk that allowed them to look down on the universe itself. Where? The disk was protected by a dome-shaped barrier with only one entrance exit, while there were several Dakibus standing in front of this very doorway. Yu Yong-hyuk took a look at the Dakibus once, and then at the doorway before muttering to himself, "It's the Gate of Star Stream. You know where this is?" He nodded his head at Han Soo-young's question. "It's where the Bureau's headquarters is. You have to pass through here in order to enter the final scenario's location." Sounds like you've been here before. Were you caught by the probability appropriateness evaluation or something? No, it's my first time here. Then how did you know? Did the records from the 1863rd turn mention this place? That is. Suddenly, he grabbed his temples and staggered unsteadily. He knew of the records from the 1863rd turn, thanks to the secretive plotter. However, those records didn't contain any information regarding this scenario. Kim Dak-ya hadn't said anything in particular either. In that case, how did he know of this information already? Tsu-jun. Sparks faintly danced just above his coat. Yi Jai-hai sensed that something was wrong, and as she reached out to him, rays of bright light exploded from the gate's vicinity. Another batch of constellations, as well as Dakibus, warped into this place. Constellation Nims, please, it's this way. Constellations and incarnations brushed past their group in perfect order under the guidance of great Dakibus, and among them walking past Kim Dak-ya Company was Hyach, the very same Dakibai who showed up to offer them a choice earlier. Didn't I say it before, that you'll all regret your decision? Han Soo-young and Yu Yong-hyuk glanced at each other after hearing that great Dakibai's passing voice. Something was off about this whole thing. Quite unlike this great Dakibai's group that went past the gate rather easily, Kim Dak-ya Company wasn't even able to approach its vicinity at all. Bihyung was standing by the entrance, and the group could hear him arguing with the gatekeepers there. What is the meaning of this? We've already gone through all the procedures. These incarnations possess the right qualifications to enter the final scenario, so please step aside. As the gate emitting pure light swallowed up the great Dakibai's group, it stopped first and whispered something to the captain of the gatekeepers. Unable to wait any longer, Bihyung stepped forward, only for this captain to open its lips. Higher-ranking Dakibai Bihyung, you and Kim Dak-ya Company can't enter the final scenario. When I was young, I often had dreams where I became Yu Yong-hyuk. Well, he occupied the places inside me that should have been filled by the likes of Superman or Batman. That was why. Not only that, I often acted as him even when I was wide awake. I got beaten up because of that, and also experienced some pretty horrible ordeals too. Even then, I managed to survive until now because I became such a Yu Yong-hyuk. Captain, let's hurry and head over to the next scenario. Of course, it wasn't only Yu Yong-hyuk who made an appearance in my dreams. Indeed, the brave Yi Jai-hai was there too. And maintenance of the equipment is complete, Yong-hyuk SSI. The dependable Yi Hyun-seong was also there, and finally, Captain, are you all right? Your complexion isn't so good. The thoughtful Shin Yuseung was there too. In a way, they were like my family. If Yu Jung-hyuk was my parent, then Yi Hyun-seong was my older brother, Jae-hai was my older sister, and Yu-seung was my friend. I loved their stories. I cheered them on during their fights and took a peek at their misfortunes. And I wasn't really sure if this could serve as an excuse, but I truly wished for them to be happy. What had happened to them by now, I wonder. The last thing I saw was Yu Jung-hyuk's face. It's all because of you. Suddenly my view spun around. I spat out a pained groan and opened my eyes. Your complexion isn't so good. Are you all right? I was wondering why my chest felt heavy, but as it turned out, the K-Coma Yu Jung-hyuk number 999 was standing on it. He used his mini heaven-shaking sword to pick up a cup resting on the nearby table and handed it over to me. Drink. Thanks. My mind gradually woke up after drinking some cold water. Current incarnation body recovery rate, 36%. Although negligent, my incarnation body was slowly recovering. Of course, it wasn't enough to make me feel satisfied. Kim Dokya Company, it's now time to leave for the final scenario. The site I saw in 666 smartphone last night didn't want to leave my head. My companions were already facing the offer of the final scenario. I no longer had time to waste here. You can leave whenever you want, as long as you can figure out the answer yourself, that is. It's that thing again. I grumbled unhappily and sat up, but then the K-Coma Yu Jung-hyuk number 999 threw an unexpected question in my way. Name the type of food you hate. Why all of a sudden? Shut up and answer the question. I was momentarily overwhelmed by the little guy's force. It's tomato. He pulled out a small memo pad from his inner pocket and jotted down tomato in neat handwriting. Why was he writing that down anyway? What about your favorite food? Murim dumplings with chicken broth. My answer prompted a change of expressions in 999's face. Looks like your tongue knows its stuff. Well, sure, my 3-inch tongue helped me live this far, that's true. 81st Turn is in charge of cooking. His swordsmanship might be lacking, but he's quite talented when it comes to making food. Look forward to it. Now that I thought about it, 81st Turn Yu Jung-hyuk learned quite a lot of cooking skills for some reason, didn't he? It seemed that he was in charge of meals in this place then. 999 finished jotting down on the memo, jumped off from the bed and glanced back at me. If you're uncomfortable about something, tell me. Even a dumb guest is a guest nonetheless. There is something I want to ask, actually. As long as it's not an unnecessary one. Why did Yu Jung-hyuk become an outer god? The K-Coma Yu Jung-hyuk's expression hardened ever so slightly. I continued with my questioning. Not only that, he even acts as a constellation with a moniker of secretive plotter, too. The Yu Jung-hyuk that I know of would have never done something like this. One of the things I realized after coming here was that almost all the K-Coma Yu Jung-hyuks didn't really like me. Quite often, they would try to pick a fight with me for no reason, and rarely did they provide a proper answer whenever I asked them about something. However, this 999 was different. There was that story about the wolf, too. It was as if he wanted to tell me something here. Thankfully, my gut feeling wasn't wrong. Just what is the Yu Jung-hyuk you think you know? His voice contained faint traces of scorn. I didn't know what to say. Do you still believe that you can understand someone through just a few lines of text in a couple of chapters? I couldn't reply. I wasn't sure why. It could be because I thought that I had no right to answer him, or maybe I couldn't find the correct words to say. 999 quietly studied the indecisive me before shooting me a criticizing glare. He then pulled some things out from a drawer attached to the table to throw them at me. I heard that you like to read. Maybe reading that might help you. That book is written for the purpose of understanding the fear of the unknown by foolish humans like you. What 999 threw at me were several books. I picked one of them up to take a look. A brief overview of outer gods regarding the secretive plotter and the most ancient dream. Episode 79, the secretive plotter 5 Fin.